We are live from the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, where it's still a little chilly.
Yeah, but we got some heat, a little bit of heat coming in the form of space heaters.
We're working on it. I'm going to keep the coat on again today, at least for now. I'm still a little chilly, but that's all right. We'll figure it out. Not as chilly as it was for the Huskers and Blue Jays last night.
In the rebounding category?
I mean, in a lot of categories, if we're being honest here. They both teams in big matchups for different reasons. Where these matchups were big for Nebraska and for Creighton. Both fell short pretty dramatically and pretty disappointingly. And again, disappointing for entirely different reasons. You want to start with Nebraska?
Let's start with Nebraska.
Let's start with Nebraska
because that was a game that they had locked up all night long.
Yeah, well, they were up 11 with 7 minutes left. Something like that.
That is correct. And even in the first half, they had a pretty strong lead and allowed Rutgers to come back and bring it close. And when I was watching it, I'm like, okay, like you still have the lead. The energy isn't fully back in this building just yet. You're okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the second half, it's okay. You expanded on your lead.
Yeah.
So Rutgers is completely out of it. Like the fans are, they're just kind of looking around at this point. They're looking for, any glimmer of hope, and they aren't getting it in the form of 3-point shooting because every ball that Simpson seemed to throw up wasn't going in the second half, and free throws. Rutgers could not make a free throw last night. Like you could survive and win because Rutgers went about 50% from the free throw line.
Yep.
And they shot 30 free throws by game's end? But Nebraska never had that one possession where they put them away. When they faced off against Purdue, it was always having that next possession and being able to put away the Boilermakers.
Yeah, and that was really the difference between what we saw last night and what we saw against Purdue. And again, Nebraska struggles on the road. Against Purdue, every time Purdue made a little bit of a run, Nebraska had an answer, right? And now I understand they shot 14 from 23 from three in that game, and that is not a sustainable method. They did make 13 threes last night, shot 37% from 3-point range.
They're a great 3-point shooting team.
And that's a number you can certainly live and win with, right? The problem was they had some outside of Hoiberg, who had a couple huge threes in overtime that actually kept them in that thing quite a bit longer. Otherwise, they might have lost that overtime by 8.
Yeah, who
points.
had their money on Sam Hoiberg making back-to-back threes to keep it within 2?
To keep Nebraska alive? Certainly not me. But it was outside of Hoiberg, they didn't get the timely three-pointer, the timely bucket that they needed to keep the game at. That was the thing with Purdue. After they got that game to 1, Nebraska really kept them at like 4 to 7 points pretty much the whole time. They kind of kept them at arm's length, kept them away from feeling like they really had a chance to come back. The problem with Rutgers is once they really never were able to slam the door shut. And at 11-point lead with 7 minutes left, you probably should have the door shut at that point.
Because Rutgers was giving you every opportunity to shut that door.
Yes. And they finally were basically like, well, if you're not going to close this out, I guess we'll go ahead and win this game.
We're gonna run our race slowly. And by the race's end, we will beat you by 2 or 3 strides. And that's what it was. Rutgers didn't do anything special down the stretch of that game.
No, they just
all
kept
they
playing
did
hard.
was play hard.
They kept playing hard.
And Nebraska, what did they do? They kind of sat back, relaxed a bit. Ball security was a problem.
I thought they got tight.
Minutes.
I thought they got a little tight. It seemed like.
And shot selection just wasn't great. Who wanted it more? That's what it came down to. Actually, in both games, it was who wanted it more. And in this game in particular, it was Rutgers with 5 minutes to play.
Yeah, I mean, I do think, I don't want to switch to UConn Creighton yet. I will push back a little on how the narrative of that game went, but we'll get there in a minute. As far as Nebraska and Rutgers, we talked about this. I don't know if it was on air or if it was in the YouTube comments yesterday, but the reason this was a big game for Nebraska versus why it was a big game for Creighton was if you're building your NCAA tournament resume, these are games that tournament teams win.
That's a must win.
These are games where, you're going to start to build the wrong narrative if you're Nebraska. And that narrative is, okay, really struggle on the road, really struggle away from home. They don't really have any quality road wins. I mean, Kansas State is the best one, but they've dropped opportunities at Wisconsin, at Iowa, at Rutgers. Now, all of a sudden, if Nebraska is going to continue to struggle on the road, you look at Indiana and you're like, I don't know about that one. You look at Northwestern, you're like, I don't know about that one. At Illinois, you just almost have to chalk up as a loss at this point. Then you look at the regular season finale. You go at Michigan 2 games before that. You've got at Ohio State, and you're like, okay, do they have to sweep at home in order to feel good about the NCAA tournament at this point? Because there's no easy games left on the road. I mean, this was probably the best opportunity, and I get that the RAC is a hard place to play. I do. But this was probably the best opportunity. I mean, you've already missed Minnesota or this were your best opportunity for conference road wins in the season. Maryland's out there. You might be able to catch Maryland, but all of a sudden you're looking at a situation where it's like, okay, we almost have to go undefeated at home to feel good about our NCAA tournament chances because we really can't trust ourselves on the road. And to me, that puts even more pressure on you during your home games because you're like, okay, we really can't drop any of these. Well, guess what? One of those is against number 11 Wisconsin. That's not a game you're supposed to win if you're Nebraska at this point, but now you almost have to because of what position you put yourself in with your road losses.
They just got too comfortable down the stretch of that game. They knew who Rutgers was, where they sat in the Big Ten standings, and thought they could coast. And it just wasn't the case because once, like I said, the energy started to come back into that building, it became extremely difficult for Nebraska to even kind of run any sort of offense. I think about, in a stadium when you're on the road for football and how loud it gets whenever it's 3rd down and 13, because for the first 2 plays, you couldn't get anything going and the defense kept pounding you. That was kind of like, hey, the big man gets the ball inside, slams it home twice, and the energy in the stadium is so loud that you don't even know where you're at this point. You don't know who's on the same page as you. And then you're so worried about making a mistake. You mentioned them being tight. They make a mistake late in that game. Say, was it Bryce Williams on the drive? Was it Lawrence on the drive? I think it was Williams on the drive off his foot. And, Mass goes to save the ball, but he hesitated to save the ball. If he would have gone right away, that ball stays in bounds. But because he hesitates, now he borderline touches it when it's out of bounds, and you turn the basketball over. Well, those are the moments that happen whenever you start to feel like you're losing the control. And that was that moment in that game. But in particular to what you were talking about with the schedule, you can't lose games to the teams at the bottom end of your conference.
No.
You just can't.
No.
If you want to make the NCAA tournament, you have to beat the Michigans of the world, home and road, if you're playing them in both cases. You have to beat Rutgers, same thing.
Minnesota.
You have to beat Penn State, Minnesota. You have to beat Ohio State this year, the same way. Those are the teams you have to beat twice. If you get them twice, you beat them twice.
Yeah.
If you don't, then your chances keep going down and down and down as the season goes on, because no committee is going to look at Nebraska and say, man, they beat Purdue. That was a great win. But they also lost 8 games on the road that they probably should have won this year. Like, no one's going to say, because of that Purdue win, they're in the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, it's the difference between an NIT team and an NCAA team. An NIT team struggles on the road. They lose games to opponents they shouldn't lose to. They have a very similar resume to Nebraska. Now, Nebraska's got the opportunities still out there, if they can go out and win, to play themselves into the NCAA tournament. But at this point, when you're extrapolating, okay, if this is what it's looked like on the road, and the 3 of the last 4, all 3 of those on the road, this is what it's looked like on the road. And they really don't have they don't have a ton of road games yet. Their road games so far are Minnesota, Kansas State, Wisconsin, Iowa, Rutgers. Kansas State's the outlier there that they won that game. Outside of that, all their conference games, they're 0-4, and They blew leads, double-digit leads against Minnesota and Rutgers, the games they need to win. And then against the better teams, against Wisconsin and Iowa, they never looked like they were in it at all. So those are two pretty concerning, in my mind, pretty concerning scenarios that have played out on the road for Nebraska at this point. And again, they get a couple of home games, then they're back on the road to Maryland. Maryland's, again, one of those teams. They're in the same neighborhood as Nebraska in the standings. They are, at least after Nebraska's lost. They're in that kind of bottom half of the Big Ten. That's a game Nebraska has to be able to win. If you're an NCAA tournament team, they need to go probably, I mean, I don't want to exaggerate here, but going up to Wisconsin, or between now and Wisconsin, they probably need to go 3-0, Northwestern Ohio State at Maryland, to start feeling better about their NCAA tournament odds again.
The other thing, the health of Juwan Gary.
Yeah.
Because that could go down as a huge loss for this team if indeed he is out for the season. I'm not alluding to that by any means, but non-contact injuries like that tend to scare me.
Yeah.
And more times than not, it results in you missing the entirety of the season, or at least a significant period of time. If Nebraska wants a chance at being a competitive NCAA tournament team, they need him on the floor. They need Juwan Gary. And if they're missing Juwan Gary, that's a huge piece to this offense that I don't know if they can really replace, because of the way that, I mean, his veteran leadership, for one, and the way that he creates when he has the basketball in his hands. He's a different being, and they need him. They need him so badly that if they're without him the rest of the year, I mean, we saw what happened last season when Juwan went down, and now a couple other players went down too. But when they missed Juwan Gary last season, their chances of making the NCAA tournament went down.
Well, and especially a guy like him on this Nebraska team that kind of struggles in this area of like shot creators and offense creators. It's kind of him, Bryce Williams, and to a certain degree, Tominaga. Tominaga doesn't really create his own offense that much, but he's gotten better at that in terms of off the dribble stuff this year. But you don't have a ton of guys that can do that if you're Nebraska. And the guys that can do it are a bit limited. It's not like you've got one of those superstar guys that you can just turn to all the time. Like Bryce Williams and Juwan Gary and Keisei Tominaga are more what you would view as secondary type scorers, but they're your primary scorers for Nebraska. That's fine if you've got all of them and you can get at least two of them going in the same night, right? That wasn't really the case yesterday. Bryce Williams had a really nice game.
Yeah, and he looks like a really good player for this team.
But Tominaga, even though he went 4 of 8 from 3, 5 of 14 overall to get his 16 points, that's not an efficient night for him. And some of the shot selection, especially the one late from him, you wonder about a little bit because and I'm not really, I know some people were really up in arms about that shot that he took in overtime with 10 seconds left, ended up being an air ball. My thought is that's kind of what you get with a Tominaga type player. You get
those are the shots he shoots.
Yeah, like you get the good with the bad. Sometimes when that shot goes in, I mean, I know in our group chat with the rest of the team,
people freaked out when he shot that ball between two defenders in OT and he drained it from like 30 feet.
Yeah, 28, 30 feet, right? That shot is not materially different in decision making than the one that airballed with 10 seconds left. And you're like, hey, what are you doing? Like, you don't get one without the other. That's the nature of a Keisei Tominaga type player. So I don't even have a huge problem with that, but you just have to understand that that's what comes with the territory with a guy like him. And that's probably not the type of guys you want as your primary scorers, because they're not guys that can consistently get the shots they want all the time. Now, again, because there's 3 of them, you think, okay, at any given time, one of them probably can get the shot we want. But there's nights where either Juwan Gary goes out and you're all of a sudden you're looking at, okay, now we've only got 2 of them. We have to get them both going at the same time. Or one of them's having an off night, or 2 of them are having an off night. And all of a sudden you're in trouble because you don't have enough shot creators and offense creators on your team to be able to overcome or to be able to stop a Rutgers run. That's the thing that I watched yesterday. I go, man, they really don't have a guy that says, okay, we need a bucket here. I'm getting a bucket here. That guy doesn't really exist on Nebraska's offense.
And one of the closest things to that is Juwan Gary.
Yeah.
And that's what I was getting at with his creativity and his veteran leadership and knowing that, hey, when I have the basketball, things are going to go well.
Yeah, so his injury becomes outsized for them because of their lack and because of what his skill set is. It becomes an even bigger problem for a Nebraska team.
Now, you push back on something I said earlier in terms of both teams when I said who wanted it more.
Sure.
You said the narratives were different. Why do you think that?
Well, so I do, first and foremost, I do think Creighton came out super flat and that UConn played harder. I'm pushing back a little bit. To me, though, the takeaway from that Creighton game was UConn just looked a lot better than Creighton.
You remember when I said I had to set an alarm today?
Check in for your flight.
Quick side note.
Yeah, check in
quick
for your
side
flight.
note. I had to set an alarm because Southwest makes you sign in for your flights 24 hours in advance, and I would have forgotten if I didn't have this alarm set. Okay, sorry. Continue.
Anyway, so I do think UConn came out and played harder, but as I'm watching that game, part of it is effort and intensity, right? But part of it just looked like, okay, the length, athleticism, and physicality of UConn looked like it overwhelmed Creighton. And if you're Creighton and you're not playing at 110% or however you want to measure the effort, then instead of being like, hey, this is a team that's going to beat us on their home court because they are more physical, athletic, and lengthy than we are, it becomes, hey, we're going to end up being down 48-28 in the second half. So I do think there was a UConn wanted it more, but I also think, to me, the takeaway was UConn's a lot better.
Yeah, so I didn't think that too much. I mean, defensively, yes, but they didn't shoot the basketball very effectively.
They did.
They shot 35% from the field. They shot 25% from three. Like, that's not number one team in the country shooting. So that's why when I talked about who wanted it more, UConn played harder. They hustled more. Defensively too, whenever they would double, like even I had trouble finding the open guy on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how good they were showing their length and showing their hole filling ability to pack the paint, so that if Ashworth is bouncing off a double team, who is he going to? Well, I guess I have to slow things up. Their defender recovers on Kalkbrenner, and now it's 5-on-5 play again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's exactly what we were seeing out of this. And the other thing, too, when you can't rebound, when you're allowing UConn to get second chance points like they did, it's game over. All right, sorry, hold on one sec. I got to check in.
They had 21. UConn had 21 offensive rebounds in that game. They missed, I'm trying to do math here. They missed 45 shots, and they rebounded 21 of them. They rebounded almost half of their misses, which makes that 35% from the field way more efficient because you're getting second chances on half of those misses, right? And just look at the difference in shot attempts here, right? Creighton, 52 shot attempts. UConn 70, right? And some of that's free throws, but the free throw disparity was only 4. So that's, you're not eating up a lot of possessions with free throws in this game, which, can I just say, and this, listen, UConn is better. Like I started this by saying, I didn't even think it was an effort thing so much, although I do think UConn played harder. I took away saying, oh, UConn's a lot better than Creighton at this point in the season, at the very least. I can't imagine. Like, you saw the style of play that UConn has, right?
Yeah.
Super physical. They're up in your jersey all the time. There is no way on earth a UConn team should ever be playing someone and they only have 6 free throws. Like, that's crazy.
Well, officiating wasn't good all night for either team, but it started with calling a foul on Creighton. Let's just go with the 3-point field goals, because this was so outrageous to me. I couldn't even believe it. Ashworth, first off, UConn moves so much that it's hard to track down your defender, and Ashworth was caught behind a double screen, and they're just running circles on offense. Spencer comes up for a 3, takes the shot. Ashworth closes. Doesn't really make a whole lot of contact. Spencer sells the foul, gets the and one. You know that a lot of contact wasn't made because that shot and the way his body was kind of falling to the ground didn't really change too much. The ball didn't like shift in the air. His arm didn't have to do something crazy.
He didn't have to adjust the shot at all. Yeah.
So that told me right away, like, guys, you're anticipating too many calls.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what I was saying about the officials most of the night. And then there was a moment when I can't remember if it was a closeout or what, but UConn takes a 3 and they say he stuck his leg out and tripped Farabello, which was completely wrong.
Yeah.
That was a complete makeup call to try to, change what happened prior to with that Ashworth play. And like, look, I have high expectations for officials.
Mm-hmm.
You know that. I'm an official. Like, there's a reason I hold them to a high standard.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that. You can't be in a game and just be like, okay, I'm going to anticipate all calls. Like that's what was taking place. And then whenever a double team would take place and say Trey bounces off the big man, you swallow your whistle. You can't do one and not the other.
It's the inconsistency of the amount of contact, right? That's the part that's frustrating. Now, again, would that have changed the outcome of the game last night? No. Like, UConn was way better last night, and that's fine. But it makes it really hard to watch a game and enjoy it even. And listen, Creighton was down by 20 in the second half, so that's not a game I'm probably going to enjoy a ton anyway. But as you're watching that thing and you see it play out that way, it feels like a hard game to watch because you have no idea what's going to be called at any given time, and it allows UConn to play rugby.
You also can't tell me in the first half that wasn't goaltending.
Oh, it 100% was. Coming up next, we got more Hurrdat Sports Radio. Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. Shane, can you turn my voice up in my headphones at all? What about this? Go ahead. Check. Yeah, it still seems real quiet. Is there anything you can do there, Shane?
Let me make some adjustments here.
Okay.
We are troubleshooting on the fly.
Yeah, they, that's actually better. Nope. Something happened. I don't know. We'll leave it alone. Anyway, want to set up the show for you here today. Coming up at 7:45, Jacob Slipec from Omaha, University of Omaha hockey. They are playing Denver this weekend. Big matchup. Number 5 team in the country, Denver. So we'll talk to Jacob at 7:43. At 8, we will talk to Mitch Sherman of The Athletic. At 8:45, we've got our guy, Brian Edwards, our Vegas insider, try and make a little money this weekend.
Maybe give me a little Vegas insight.
Our guy, Andrew's checking in for a flight for Vegas for tomorrow, so he's going to appreciate that even more than normal.
We're winning some big money this weekend, everybody.
Of course,
big money.
You can always go to our friends at Warhorse Sportsbook and place your wagers. You don't have to go all the way to Vegas like our guy A-Raj is over here. But then we will have Michael Bruntz at 9 o'clock, and we will wrap up the show with some Hurrat Hot Seat as well. But as we get into were there any loose ends you wanted to get to with Creighton or Nebraska?
Well, okay. So quickly, let's just break this down.
Okay.
Right. So for Creighton, it was the turnovers, the hustle, the defensive rebounding, offensive pace. Did I miss anything?
I mean, shot making was a big. 6 for 26 isn't going to get it done against the number 1 team in the country. And I think lastly, UConn was just better. Like I watched that game and I go, yeah, UConn's better.
That's why they're the number 1 team in the country.
For sure. But I mean, even in years past, like last year, we watched UConn win a national title. I watched Creighton split a series with UConn, and I didn't walk away from either of those games being convinced that UConn was significantly better than Creighton. I was like, yeah, those teams are about the same. This year, the first time having played the first time yesterday, I walked away. Honestly, it's the first time since UConn's come into the league that I go, oh, they're a lot better than Creighton.
Yeah, again, though, offensively, I didn't see enough of that last night to believe it because of how many missed shots they had. Now, granted, you could say they're a lot better because of how well they crashed the boards and the amount of second chance opportunities they had. But beside that and just the overall hustle, I didn't see anything that said this team is so much better than Creighton.
Yeah, I mean, I think just if you look at what happened defensively, because I mean, stylistically, the offense is never going to look awesome. Like they play a very ugly style of basketball. It's part of the reason I don't like Danny Hurley is because this is the style he coaches, and this is what he's like. I mean, I don't know if you heard him in the post game presser last night, but he was almost giddy about how the style of play went because it was so UConn favored, right? And that's to their credit that they were able to impose that style on Creighton so incredibly effectively. But that's part of it for me is Creighton really had no response to that style of play in terms of even against St. John's. Like St. John's kind of wants to play a gross style of basketball. Like there's a lot of teams in the Big East that want to play a physical kind of bully ball style of basketball, and Creighton can usually hang with those teams. Now, I understand yesterday was a particularly bad night, but I saw issues with the way Creighton handled it that I'm like, I don't know if that's fixable. Like, yes, if you make some shots, it loosens up the defense a little bit, but this game probably wasn't even as close as the 14-point final margin. You know, that 20-point lead, 48-28, whatever it was in the second half, felt pretty appropriate in terms of how the game was going. So that's why I look at it, I go, you know, if Creighton played this UConn team 10 times, Creighton wins maybe 3 of those.
Yeah, potentially. I look at this as when you're looking at things to fix throughout that game, it's not hard to say anytime the ball is up, you put a body on somebody in a white jersey. It's not hard to do that.
It's not hard to say that, but when the team...
it's also not hard to do that. If you have one responsibility, if everybody just stuck to their one responsibility, anytime a ball went up, you could turn around and box out every single time. But it just seemed like people were looking to outlet more. Like, so I'm going to break away to the sidelines. Okay, I'm going to wait for Kalk to get this board or Mason Miller to get this board so they can kick it out, and we can run and create some transition play, some more pace to get UConn on their heels a little bit. And you can't do that until you first get the ball out, whether it's off a miss, off the backboard, whatever it is. You have to at least grab the ball first to be able to move out and transition. It's easy to tell somebody to do one job and also to do that job. It's just Creighton could not find a body at any moment in time.
There's 2 things there. One, stylistically, that's what Creighton wants to do, is to be able to get out and transition. And there's even more pressure on that when you're in the half court and you can't get anything going against UConn. So there's even more pressure on you to get out and get in transition because you're like, hey.
Yeah, because when they set up the offense, they weren't going anywhere.
Yeah, like if UConn's going to be able to get set on defense, we're not scoring. I mean, Creighton had 28 points like midway through the second half. If UConn was setting up the offense, they were not going to score. And so there's a bigger emphasis on getting out in transition, which goes to what you're talking about. Guys start leaking out. And so here's the other thing, though. So that's one part of it is stylistically, that's kind of what Creighton wants to do, and it does leave you a little bit vulnerable on the offensive boards. The second thing is when you have really good offensive rebounding teams like UConn is, and they are longer and more athletic than you are, yes, it can be really easy to say, hey, you got to put a body on someone. But actually finding someone to effectively put a body on them without fouling them when they are moving that fast and they're longer and more athletic than you can actually be really challenging. Now, I'm not saying Creighton gave a good enough effort in that area.
And that's what it would boil down to, is an effort thing.
Because I don't think they did. But there's times, and I've seen this, and it looked like it to a certain degree last night. Because there were probably 3 or 4 times that I can remember off the top of my head. And listen, it was a night game on a weekday, so I've only watched it once so far. But there's 3 or 4 times off the top of my head where I could physically see someone losing their guy on a box out, but a lot of them are UConn was more athletic. They were longer. Creighton was either in a scramble defensively, which that's the other part of boxing out, is when you're in a recovery mode defensively, it becomes dramatically harder to find somebody to box out because it's not just, hey, I'm on my man and we're doing this. When Creighton's playing their drop coverage and they're trying to cover a pick and roll or they're rotating to help, all of a sudden your man isn't your man and you're not where you thought you were going to be because you had to rotate on defense. So is there an effort issue? Yeah, absolutely. Is that the only issue with the 21 offensive rebounds? I don't think so, because I think, again, if Creighton plays UConn 10 times, UConn's going to get double-digit offensive rebounds all 10 of those times. Now, keeping them to 12 or 13 instead of 21 could maybe make the difference in a game here, but they're going to get double-digit offensive rebounds every single time. I can almost guarantee that.
Well, the more you're talking about it, the more I think back to the initial question you asked me of what kind of needs to be done to see change. And I think Creighton needs to communicate better because you mentioned all the movement UConn has on offense. And if you're not going to apply it to just effort and people are, moving off of screens and finding ways to get open, they have to find a way to maybe stay at home more and communicate with their teammate as to, if I'm Stephen Ashworth and you're Baylor Shireman and my guys come in, to set a screen on your guy. If I'm going to pick your guy up, you have to direct more. You have to be more like a quarterback, like, you stay, I go, or some sort of communication needs to be done so that you don't find those open holes. And UConn at any shot point in time, they can just crash the boards and have nobody putting a body on them at any point. So communication to me is one thing, but if Creighton is going to win games and win tournament games, they have to shoot better. Yeah. And I don't know what that like looks like or how that even gets coached, because it wasn't as though Creighton was taking bad shots in this game. Sometimes it was, that was a little more contested than I would like to see, but a lot of the 3-point attempts that they shot just rattled in and out and they just couldn't find a way to sink it.
Well, so a lot of times what you find in these situations where you're playing a really good defensive team, a team that's long and athletic and is putting you in really tough positions, is and you saw this a couple times because guys got either 3-point shots blocked or they got mid-range jumpers blocked, is you start to rush that three a little bit. And it's it's a really difficult thing to fight against because it's sort of human nature to be like, oh, I got it blocked last time, I got to get the shot off. Well, when you start rushing shots, you start missing shots, right? And I think that's where Creighton ended up pretty early last night. Again, they're never going to be the number one team in the country shooting 6 of 26. And let's be honest, they're probably not winning any tournament games this year going 6 of 26. This isn't the team last year where they could survive outings like that. They probably need to make double-digit three-pointers to A, beat ranked teams, and B, win any games in March. Coming up next, we are going to turn our attention to Omaha hockey. Jacob Slipec is coming up to join us here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. I'm Ravi, Lulla, Andrew Rogers here with me. We are live from the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. Wanted to remind you also part of that lineup that we went through earlier. We're about to talk to Jacob Slipec of Omaha Hockey. We're also going to talk to Sydney Hilley from the Omaha Supernovas. That's at 9:30. We gave away some Supernova tickets yesterday. They start their season a week from yesterday, coming up this Wednesday against the Atlanta Vibe. So make sure you listen in for that as well. But right now, joining us on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline is Jacob Slipec from Omaha Hockey. Jacob, how are you this morning?
I'm great, thanks. How are you guys doing?
Good, Jacob. Thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So you've got a big weekend coming up here with Denver in town. Earlier this season, you guys split your first series with Denver. What have you learned from that point in the season to now that you think might help you this weekend?
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's anything new that we've learned necessarily, but it's more just being more consistent with our day-to-day approach and like what our plan is as a team. Where, then a couple months ago, we've had the same goals all year of, whether that's winning a national championship, winning the Penrose, and, we established early, what do we need to do to get there? And now it's just, since then, we've just taken way more steps forward. And I think the biggest thing is just the consistency in the way we're going to play.
Jacob, 19th in the country right now is the team, tied for 18th in the pairwise rankings. Is that right where this team wants to be, or would you say you're close to where you guys expected to be at this point?
I mean, obviously, if it was up to us, you wouldn't have lost a single game all season yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's going to be ups and downs within the season. But, are we satisfied with where we're at? No. Obviously, we want to keep pushing up in the rankings as high as we can. But with where we're at right now, we're happy with, in the grand scheme of things, of moving forward on the second half push of the season here. We've done a really good job in the first half of setting us up into a really good spot in order to make that push into the higher seeds.
We're talking with Jacob Slipec of Omaha Hockey. Jacob, you mentioned you're not where you want to be yet. Where are some areas of growth that you're focusing on as you enter into this kind of the second half of the season here?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just consistency through all 60 minutes of the game, which is a hard thing to do. That's the biggest thing. I think even at the next level, that's the toughest thing to do is consistency. But, like I said earlier, we have the blueprint of, the way our team plays in order to be successful. And it's about just sticking to it, every day, every practice. And then come game time, we don't even have to think. It's just natural, and we're able to sustain it for that whole 60 minutes against teams. They're not going to be able to compete with us.
Jacob, I know you said, if you had your wish, obviously you'd want to win every game this season, but it's kind of been a roller coaster. Credit to the NCHC here for having, what was it, 4 or 5 teams in the top 20 ranked nationally. I think in the past, being somebody that's been a fan of Omaha for a while, it's been I'm not excited to see North Dakota. I'm not excited to see, Denver or whoever it may be. But is that kind of story flipped this season? Are those teams saying, man, I don't want to see Omaha? Because anytime Omaha either enters their building or they enter Baxter Arena, it seems like you always steal one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, obviously this is only my second year here, but from what I've heard from a leadership standpoint of, the guys we have are such great guys, who represent our team with letters, being Nolan Sullivan, Matt Miller, and Jack Randall. And, I think last year, from the sounds of it from them, and even the year before that, were the biggest steps forward in what you were talking about, where, you do it once, you do it twice, but now, I think it's like that third year of, like you said, we're going in there and we're stealing games, and they know we're coming in to steal games. That, trying to think of the word here, that we're seen as more of a threat, I would say, yes, from just what I've heard. Like I said, I haven't been here for that long, but the message is we're a threat to teams. They now know that we are a threat, and they know when they're playing the Omaha Mavericks, whether it's, like you said, in Denver, in North Dakota, or at home at Baxter Arena, it's going to be a long, long, hard night for you.
Jacob, you mentioned this is your second year here in Omaha. I know you're from British Columbia originally. What brought you to Omaha? What kind of attracted you to this program and decided you wanted to play your hockey here?
Mm-hmm. To sum it up pretty quick, one of my teammates now, and at the time, Michael Abgraw, this is our 5th, 6th year being teammates together. He committed relatively young in juniors when he was 16. And then, so I started learning about Omaha through him. And then sure enough, 3 years later, they reached out to me, and I came down on a visit in the summertime, just before the beginning of my 20-year-old season of juniors. And as soon as I got down here, I fell in love with the city, the people, the staff. And the thing that really blew me away the most, obviously besides Baxter Arena and all the great amenities that we're so blessed and grateful to have, is the attention to detail that everyone has, from players to coaches to everyone else on the staff. And I got the vibe and the impression of, hey, everyone here shares the same common goal, and that's winning and getting to the next level. And that's what spoke to me the most, and it made my decision extremely easy when choosing to come here, because I knew right away that the culture that's been established here is the place that I wanted to be and be a part of.
Jacob, yesterday we had a little fun, a fun little scenario that we put on ourselves here on the show. And we talked about the most punchable faces that are in college coaching. We kind of identified it with basketball at that time. But my question to you is, and I want to have a little fun with this, who is the most punchable team in the NCHC?
Most punchable team. Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, it's tough. I know you could ask anyone else and they give an answer, but I mean, I honestly just, if you're not a Maverick,
everybody's getting punched.
Yeah, like I just see red, and I don't hate anyone more than others. I mean, I hate them all. They're coming into our barn. Hey, no, this is our spot. We're going into your barn. Well, guess what? We're gonna take it.
Well, speaking of people coming into your barn, this is the first game back at Baxter since December 9th. How does it feel to be back, and how much have you missed playing in front of these fans?
Yeah, it's been we've been unfortunate playing in front of some pretty crappy fans on the road because no one compares to the Maniacs and the fans we got here in Omaha. And yeah, I'm pumped. I love playing in Baxter. It's one of those things where every time I'm on the goal line and they're doing the starting lineup and the intro video and all that stuff, you just get chills. And I always try to make sure I take a second to really appreciate where I'm at, and I do. And hearing the roar of the fans when we come out and just everything about the whole experience, I'm very excited, and I hope the fans are excited that we're back too.
We're talking with Jacob Slipec of Omaha Hockey. All right, we're gonna try and get to know you a little bit here, Jacob. What is your favorite pregame meal? We heard that the Baltimore Ravens go through like 7,000 Uncrustables a year. What's your go-to snack or meal before you're eating or before you're playing or going to practice or whatever?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, go-to the night before is me and a couple of the guys always go to Texas Roadhouse.
Okay. You getting those rolls? Getting those carbo loads?
The cinnamon butter, man.
We're not going too crazy as we would on an off day, but we're getting a couple. We need that corner weight. So
good for you.
Yeah, we'll have a couple of those. But no, always at the rink before games, I'm always having a bagel with a garlic and herb cream cheese. That's my favorite.
Okay.
Jacob, we know hockey players are the kings of nicknames. What is your nickname?
Mainly it's just like Slip, Slippy, or Slip Dog.
Is there a teammate whose nickname you think is the best on the team?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Randy's Jack Randall. We call him the dog.
which is so funny for a guy like him because he's so keep to himself.
Oh yeah. It's funny. Some of those guys were like, when I came in last year, I was like, oh my God, like I cannot piss this guy off. He's gonna kill me. He's a scary guy without meaning to be. Like he just looks like nails. He's so tough.
Yeah, on the outside. On the outside,
yeah,
Jack is like, hey, I'm gonna punch you in the face.
Oh yeah. But now getting to know him last year and obviously, more every day, he is the funniest guy, and he'll come in the room and we'll just start all the guys will just start barking at him. And then he just barks back. He's the dog. He makes the play game. We're barking on the bench. It's awesome, and he loves it.
Quickly here, got about 30 seconds. What should fans be expecting this weekend, Jacob, against the top 5 opponent, Denver?
2 wins.
All right.
There we go.
Say less.
Love to hear it. That's Jacob Slipec, or Slippy, as his teammates call him.
I like Slip Dog.
Slip Dog. Well, I mean, you can't get him convinced with the dog, though. I mean, you got to be careful there.
Well, he's like Jack Randall's understudy, apparently.
Jacob, we appreciate your time. Good luck this weekend, and hope you get those 2 wins against Denver.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, man.
That's Jacob Slipec of Omaha Hockey. Coming up next here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, we're going to talk to Mitch Sherman in the next segment at some point. I'm not sure what time exactly, but we'll catch up with Mitch here in the 8 o'clock hour. That's Andrew Rogers. I'm Ravi. Lulla. More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next. Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We are also on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube if you want to catch that video stream, as our guy TK has. I'm about to tell you about his terrible take here in just a minute. But before we do that, I want to tell you about a great take, and that is to take yourself and whoever you want to hang out with to the Omaha Supernovas match on January 24th. That's less than a week away, 7 p.m. at the CHI Health Center. The very first Pro Volleyball Federation match is here in Omaha. Your Supernovas against the Atlanta Vibe. Secure your season and single match tickets now at supernovas.com. You'll see world-class talent. You will have All-Americans. You're going to have Olympians and NCAA champions all on the court for that match. It's going to be a great night in Omaha. Get caught up and join the volleyball craze sweeping the nation. by watching your Omaha Supernovas. Go to supernovas.com for tickets. Speaking of which, we're going to talk to Sydney Hilley of the Omaha Supernovas coming up at 9:30. We're going to talk to our guy, Mitch Sherman, here in a little bit, but I mentioned a terrible take on the stream.
Horrible take.
Just awful, awful take. Okay. Our guy, TK, who we love dearly. He's a loyal listener. He is dead wrong here. He mentioned that the cinnamon butter at Texas Roadhouse is wildly overrated. And I don't know if I can trust any other thing that comes out of his mouth now, because that might be the most insane thing I've ever heard in my life.
Those rolls paired with that butter, find me a better appetizer.
It doesn't exist.
It is the most outstanding thing in the entire world. I could eat 2 baskets of that and still finish my plate.
Absolutely.
Of the 6-ounce sirloin, mashed potatoes, green beans,
whatever you want. They low-key have.
Nom.
I usually get with my sides. I go like a salad there because I like to. Their salad's actually low-key pretty good, and I like to lighten it up a little bit between the rolls and the steak. But come on, TK. We
TK.
need
look right there. Look right there.
Yeah.
TK, punchable face.
He says he's an ex-O lineman. I know what good food is. Listen,
I'm a foodie. I know what good food is.
I'm an ex-power lifter who's got a wife that's a chef. I know what good food is.
TK.
And I will say, my professional chef of a wife signs off on the cinnamon butter.
You know what? Here's what I'm going to do, though, because, anytime you go to Texas Roadhouse, you always feel bad about asking for more rolls.
Oh, I never feel bad about that.
I do. I guess it's kind of something that's just in Ravi's back pocket. He just pulls it out when he wants it.
Not only that,
whenever I go to Texas Roadhouse now, I know who to go with. I'm going with TK because I know he's not eating any.
He's not going to eat any of your.
We're good.
He's not going to eat any
more
of
rolls
your
for me.
Cinnamon butter. I don't feel bad asking for more. I'm like, hey, let's keep the rolls coming here. Also, I'm going to ask for some to take home as well. We're going to because they'll give them to you. They'll give you rolls and butter to take home. It's incredible. I don't know listen, TK, we love you, but you need to.
My mouth is watering right now. Because I want some of that cinnamon butter.
TK, you need to find Jesus on this one because you're missing the mark here.
Oh man, dude, he just he's doing it again. Now he's trying to get under my skin because he knows I like Canes.
See, I actually agree with him on Canes. I do think
you
Canes
guys
is
are wrong.
overrated. I do think Canes is overrated.
What's better than Canes, like chicken wise?
I mean, I think Chick-fil-A is better than Canes.
Service wise, I
think their food is better.
Hands down,
also.
They're probably the best.
I also think the food is better at Popeyes, if I'm being honest.
Chicken fingers at Canes are better than chicken fingers at Chick-fil-A.
Ooh,
I don't think that's a hot take.
I don't know.
The chicken variety is what gives Chick-fil-A such power.
I agree with TK that Popeyes is better. I think Popeyes has the best chicken.
I like Popeyes, but Popeyes screws up my order more times than they get it right, and that's why Canes still holds the edge for me.
So on just pure food, Popeyes is better. The problem with Popeyes is it's like a 40% chance you're going to get what you ask for, and it's going to take forever.
And I haven't had Zaxby's, so I can't touch on that.
I haven't had Zaxby's either. That's
Zaxby's is a South thing, right?
Yeah,
is Zaxby's in KC? He listens from KC, so he'll be able to let us know.
I don't have a. Corey says that's part of the experience of Popeyes. It's like spinning the jelly bean wheel. You don't actually know what you're gonna get.
Well, the last time I got Popeyes, I'm like, man, I'm gonna get it with these 2 sauces. I want it with the Dr. Pepper. I pick up my order because I did it on DoorDash pickup, so that I avoided the fees, but I could just get it right away. And it's partially my fault. I have too much faith that society gets it right. So I drive off and I take the first swig. What soda do you think I get?
Not a Dr. Pepper. That's going to be a Diet Coke.
Dude, it's even worse. Root beer.
Oh.
When you're expecting a caffeinated drink and you get root beer, I mean, just talk about a gut punch. And then to top it all off, I got 4 chicken fingers. That's all I wanted.
Yeah.
And they give me 3. I'm like, guys.
The number of times that I've gotten
help me out.
Regular soda instead of Diet Coke at Popeyes is probably more than every other experience in my life combined. And I don't go to Popeyes that often, but you're right. The service, but if you're just talking just the food, Popeyes wins in the chicken market. The service is where
Canes is superior. But just make sure to down the fries before you get started, because those things will get really soggy in the styrofoam box. Also, veteran move here for those that are want a pro tip.
Yeah.
When you get your box of chicken, air it out a little bit, because the chicken will then get soggy too. Maybe even pick up the chicken tenders off the paper. Is it in paper?
Yeah, there's the Cane's paper.
Yeah, the Cane's paper.
Yeah.
Lift it up a little bit, let it air out, let it breathe, because they throw it in there piping hot. And
You get a lot
by the
of
time you get
condensation.
home, dude, that thing, you can wiggle it around.
Real soggy, yeah. Which is part of the problem with Cane's. I always get it drive-through, so I don't always get the best version of Cane's. I understand that. Corey says nothing is worse than getting sweet tea.
I think that's the equivalent
when
of
you order
when you
regular.
order like a Dr. Pepper and you get a root beer.
I think it also goes in the opposite, right? If you order sweet tea and you get a regular
Yep.
and you're expecting something sweet and you get like a bitter taste instead, that's really bad. Mine is particularly a pet peeve because it's like, okay, if I get regular Coke, I can't drink it, right? So it's like,
well, yours is a life risk.
yeah, mine's like, well, I guess I just don't have anything to drink with this meal, but that's okay.
You're like the person though that could get away with going back to the counter and saying, "You could have killed me." Like sometimes, like I'm not proud of this moment, but like I used to not like cheese on anything. Okay, like
that's a bad take.
I didn't want cheese on my burgers. I didn't want cheese on my sandwiches. Like I just wasn't a big cheese fan. Now over time that has changed. Like I'll eat if I go to whatever, I'll get a cheeseburger or like provolone on a sandwich. But I used to go up to the counter and say, "I'm allergic to cheese," and I said, "1 bite of this." And an ambulance would need to get called. Like I'd make a huge deal about it because I was so mad that I would always get cheese when I ordered it without cheese. And then they'd be like, "Oh man, I'm sorry. Like we'll comp your meal, like this, that, and the other." And I'd walked away like feeling all high and mighty on my hill. And then later on, I'd feel like a piece of dumpster doo-doo because I'm like, man, that guy didn't deserve what I just gave him he didn't put the cheese on my sandwich.
Yeah, that's a tough look. That's a tough look for my guy here. That's
it was a used to moment. Like, you learn over time.
No, it's fair. I appreciate you being vulnerable and telling us, letting us know that you've learned, you've grown.
Don't put it past me. I'd do it again.
So it's not really a used to moment.
I haven't done it in a while because now I get cheese on my food.
Because cheese is good, man. Cheese is pretty good. So were you like not a pizza guy? You didn't like pizza?
So I love pizza. I would love like getting nachos. I didn't like slices of American cheese.
Oh, okay. So it's very specific type of cheese.
And so then that kind of bled into, well, if I got a sandwich, I'd just rather have it without the cheese. It's kind of like when I'm like, hey, like I don't want tomatoes. I don't want this. Like I actually don't like tomatoes.
Yeah, I don't like tomatoes on a sandwich. I don't think it's a good addition.
And it gets soggy. Yeah. And so like that's why I'm like, hey, no tomato. And then when tomatoes are on there, I'm just like, man, so I'll pull off the tomato, but I'll still eat the sandwich. Yeah. And it's kind of what I would do with
tomato
cheese.
Doesn't like melt.
But American cheese would literally melt to everything.
Yeah.
And so that's what would make me mad.
You can't separate it.
No. And another thing I can't stand, mustard. Can't stand it.
Interesting.
So whenever I'd go to like McDonald's, like because I'm always on the road, living away from home. Like, if I'm stopping somewhere, it's quickly at McDonald's and I'm back on the road. I'm like, hey, all I want on my burger is like the cheese, the pickles, and the ketchup. That's it. Right. That's all I want. And if it came mixed, because you know what they do? They do like the little squeeze thing that has all 3 sauces, whatever. And if there's mustard on there, like I can't eat the bun because I don't like the taste of mustard.
Interesting. I don't mind mustard. But I agree with you on the tomatoes. I don't think they add anything to a sandwich. It's not quality. I think it's just filler, and I'm not a big fan. I will say, if you can go someplace, this is the thing that I like about Chick-fil-A over some of the other places, is you can get like a slice of pepper jack cheese on your sandwich, which does it. I mean, that enhances the flavor there. You get like a nice little pepper jack instead of American.
Oh, I love pepper jack cheese.
Pepper jack.
And you know what? Now that I've started cooking, I've loosened up.
Yeah.
Because like TK pointed out that I'm a picky eater. And like in some cases, I was a really picky eater. But now that I cook and I'm like forced to do things to certain recipes that I wouldn't normally do. And then it turns out to taste really dang good.
Yeah.
But on the other side are not healthy eaters, picky eaters.
What?
Are you a healthy eater?
When you just eat health food and you stay within the carbs and you don't do the sugars and you don't do the chocolate and you're a healthy eater, are you not a picky eater? I mean, what's wrong with being a picky eater? If you don't like tomatoes, because I don't like tomatoes either. I don't like tomatoes either. I am a picky eater. And people go, oh, you're such a picky eater. But, I mean, you could be a picky eater and be a healthy eater, too. Can you not?
I mean, I think there's a difference there.
There's some exclusivity.
Yeah, there's
There's
a difference between like, hey, I'm picky because I
don't like the taste of it and it tastes like
versus
crap.
I'm a picky eater because I am trying to be healthy.
I would say TK is a picky eater. He doesn't like it.
Yeah, get him, Shane. Get him.
I mean, how many places does he not like to eat at?
I mean,
somebody's got to stand up to TK. Good thing we have our guy high and mighty on his chair.
The amazing Daniel says Shane is trying to say that since healthy eaters are picky, picky eaters are healthy. That's not true. I would consider myself.
I would say that's true.
No, it's not. You can be a picky eater and still eat like garbage. Like that's.
I only eat junk food.
Like for instance, I really don't eat like cooked vegetables. I don't eat cooked vegetables.
And Mr. Irrelevant is Thomas Kuchera.
I was saying that we have our first round draft pick, Mitch Sherman, in.
Oh, we got
he's
Mitch
here?
now. Terrific. Is he on the
There
stream?
he is.
There he is. Mitch, would you consider, we got Mitch Sherman from The Athletic, would you consider yourself a picky eater?
No, not really. I'm okay with whatever I get for the most part. I mean, there's certain things I don't like, but probably not picky. My 13-year-old, who I just spent a half hour with in the middle school drop-off line, is picky. Sorry for my tardiness today, but people don't know how to drive when there's a little snow on the roads.
Or on the side of the roads, that is.
I don't know what the science is or the math behind it, because I'm not really going any slower right now than I mean, last week during a blizzard, yes, but I feel like I'm going the same speed, but it takes twice as long to get through the school line.
Mitch, we'll ask sports questions after this probably, but what is the one thing you said? There's a couple things you just really don't like. What's your number one draft pick of like, hey, I'm just not eating that?
Not eating that. I mean, it's somewhere in I mean, I'll eat plenty of vegetables, but I don't like asparagus. What else? Broccoli, I think. I mean, I'll eat it if I have to, and if it's cooked, you put some spices on it. It's palatable for me. But a number of those vegetables in that family there are not my favorites.
See, Mitch is so dialed in, it doesn't shock me that he is just easygoing. that he would just, take what's given to him.
Take it?
Yeah. That's who you are.
It could be. You could be right. I don't know. Maybe my wife would say something different.
Hey, it's a personality thing, and I like Mitch Sherman's personality, so that's all that matters. Another personality I like is Glenn Thomas, and I also like when you're right about things, and that was Mitch Sherman because he broke the news. But you've kind of been all over the reports from the very beginning. What is the quarterback room getting out of a coach like him?
It's getting the experience that he's got, which is 2 stints in the NFL with the Atlanta Falcons, and then this last year as an offensive assistant with the Steelers. But I think more than that, Nebraska's getting, and the Nebraska quarterbacks are getting, a coach who is in harmony and understands how to work with Matt Rule and Marcus Satterfield in the system. And, we saw in the official announcement yesterday from Nebraska that his title will be co-offensive coordinator, so that secures, any kind of that erases any doubt about the role that Glenn Thomas is going to have in this offense. And Marcus Satterfield, still offensive coordinator. He's coaching tight ends. He's going to be a big part, of course, of the game plan and the play calling, but we don't know exactly how it's all going to break down with how the plays are actually called. I would assume, and based on, the indications that I was getting through this process, is that that's still on Satterfield's plate. Let's see what Thomas's salary is too. That'll be somewhat of an indicator. And I think part of the reason, if you're Nebraska, that you give him that co-OC title is to be able to justify paying him more than your other assistants, like your O-line coach or your wide receivers coach, linebackers coach, whatever. So that would indicate additional responsibility, if he's up in the $1 million range. They've got $2 million coordinators at this point, with Tony White at 1.6 and Satterfield at 1.3. I would suspect that Thomas is also going to be in that 7-figure range, which is just crazy to think that until last year, Nebraska had never had $1 million coordinator.
We're talking with Mitch Sherman of The Athletic. Mitch, obviously the big story with Glenn Thomas is him coming in that quarterback spot. How much do you think, if at all, that affected the recruitment and ultimate flip of Dylan Raiola? Is that something you think they maybe leaked to him early, or that they knew about that far back, or do you think the two are not really connected?
Not specifically, but I do, but indirectly, yes, because I think that part of the conversation between the Raiolas and they would have inside knowledge about what's going on with the Nebraska offensive staff even before that call was made back on December 10th, 10 days before signing day, about what the Huskers were thinking about offensively because of the connection to Donovan Raiola. Now, sometimes a head coach will keep his assistants somewhat, in the dark about exactly how changes are going to be made, because you never know who the changes might affect. But I think it was clear from the end of the season, or even before that nothing was changing with Donovan Raiola. He's with the offensive line. He was going to be with the offensive line all through. They're not, he doesn't have any specific impact on who's coaching the quarterback. So if your rule, you could be a little more upfront with Donnie about how that's going to go. And in turn, if you tell him and he knows, then Dominic is going to know and Dylan is going to know. So I think that Nebraska talked with the Raiolas about the fact that they were going to make changes at how the quarterback position was coached and who was coaching the quarterback position. But a month ago, and we're talking, it's been more than a month now since the whole Dylan flip began to take shape. At that point, I don't think they knew that it was going to be Glenn Thomas. He's a possibility. His name was out there. He's got history with Matt Rule. But no, I don't think that him specifically impacted Dylan's decision to come off of Georgia and come to Nebraska.
Mitch, how much do you expect Satterfield to settle in after getting back in his comfort zone, moving away from coaching quarterbacks and coaching just the offense and tight ends like he was initially brought in here to do? Do you expect him to get more comfortable in his role?
Yeah, I'm optimistic that it can be a good move for him. And, on paper, it looked okay a year ago. If you go back to January of 2023, and Nebraska's just signed Jeff Sims, who's an experienced quarterback at the Power 5 level. And you've got Chubba Purdy, you've got Heinrich Harburg, and at that point you still had Casey Thompson and Logan Smothers when Nebraska made the decision to go with Sat as the QB's coach. So you had depth and you had experience, and you had multiple players. You had 3 who had started games at the Power 5 level. So you're thinking, hey, this quarterback thing can work out pretty well. It's one of the more set positions on the offensive side. And as the season played out from the very beginning, that couldn't have been further from the reality of the situation. First, you have Thompson and Smothers go into the transfer portal after spring, and then Jeff Sims plays poorly at the beginning of the season, gets hurt in week 2, and all of a sudden you're down to, and Purdy was hurt at that time too. All of a sudden you're down to Heinrich Harburg. So Marcus Satterfield, if you knew a year ago what they knew in September, I think Nebraska would have made more of an effort to get him help at that quarterback spot, but you couldn't change it. You were changing enough on the fly after week 2 of last season about what you were doing offensively. You couldn't really shift responsibilities on the offensive staff. I mean, he was in that position for the long haul in 2023. So needless to say, he had a lot on his plate, and it was probably too much to deal with that situation at quarterback, everything that was going on. It was a lot, and manage a first-year offense, call plays, strategize, game plan every week. He earned that big salary that, the biggest at the time, that was the biggest for a coordinator in Nebraska history. So, you go into this year and you say, how do you prevent a situation like that from happening? And the first thing, the most important thing is having players who can handle the moments. And they think they have that in Dylan Raiola. And then number two is to change up some responsibilities. So the coach, no matter what happens, the coach who is in charge of that quarterback position is at no time going to be saddled with everything that needs to be done to get the offense running right.
Mitch, we've got about 2 minutes left here with you. I know yesterday you put out kind of a breakdown of the roster for Nebraska and the top guys at each position. As you're going through all these names, just looking at the roster kind of in a holistic view, the way you did there, were there any takeaways you got that you maybe weren't expecting, in the sense of, oh, maybe this group is a little deeper than I realized, maybe this group needs a little more help than I realized? Anything like that jump out at you while you were putting that together?
Yeah, and I went about it from trying to construct a list of 115 players, because I feel like that number is more relevant in roster construction right now than the 85 who were on scholarship, because Nebraska can do things with NIL. It's not like you have 115 who are getting a scholarship or the equivalent of a scholarship, but it's north of 85 for sure. Mm-hmm. And you can try to figure out who's on scholarship and who's not, and it becomes kind of a difficult exercise. You see Nebraska this year released all of the recruits, including the walk-ons, in one list. That's the first time that they've done that. So that was kind of a signal to me, like, hey, these are blurry lines. So let's not focus on the 85. Let's focus on the 115 who can come to preseason camp. And that's the list that I put out. And this is my guess. This is a projection. There are probably a few on there that if the coaches came up with it right now, they don't need to until August, but if they came up with it right now, you might have a couple that were off. It's like trying to project the 64 team field or 68 team field for the tournament in January. But there's more depth, there's more experience. If you look at it and you go through position by position, you see a number of those position groups, like offensive line, like defensive line, like the secondary, that are really senior dominated. And that's something that Nebraska hasn't enjoyed, at least seniors who have a lot of experience. So they're still a young team. There's still 48 freshmen on that list of 115 redshirt and true freshmen, and just 19 seniors, but they're much further along than 14 months ago when Matt Rule took over, as far as having depth and valuable experience at quite a few spots.
That's Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Mitch, great stuff as always. We will catch up with you again soon.
All right, good to talk to you guys. Thanks.
Thanks, Mitch.
That's Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. You can check out all of his work at theathletic.com. Coming up next, what do we have here? Maybe a little Hurrdat Hot Seat?
Yeah, we can do it
on Hurrdat Sports Radio. We're halfway through the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. It is warming up a little bit, at least for one day here in Omaha, Nebraska. Going to be cold again tomorrow and Saturday before we get a little reprieve next week. But even though it is warming up a little bit, make sure you are still driving safely, because one of every 3 fatal crashes in Nebraska involves an impaired driver. Why take chances, especially when the road conditions are like this? If you drink or use other substances, do not drive. Impaired driving is deceptively dangerous. This is a message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. So kind of in the break there, we were doing Immaculate Grid because we're nerds. And
at first we thought, hey, let's do it during the segment. And then, of course, because Ravi and I are impatient, we can't. We just started doing it.
We just started doing it. And the categories today are actually really interesting, because it's you've got your teams as you do normally. It's the Dodgers, the Giants, the Padres, and the Mets. But then you've got 200 plus career wins, which is a pretty high threshold, and 2,000 plus career strikeouts, which is also a reasonably high threshold as well. So we're going to do that in the next break. Right now, we're going to do a Hurrdat Hot Seat.
We got to finish it up in the next break.
Yeah, we got to finish up our Immaculate
I am proud
Grid.
of my 2,000K Giant remember.
Yeah, what'd you end up there? Gaylord Perry?
Gaylord Perry.
That's a terrific call. I didn't realize he played for the Giants.
And the reason I mean, the only reason I know that guy's name is because of Perry the Platypus from Phineas and Ferb.
There you go. Phineas and Ferb. That's the trivia wheelhouse that Anna wants to play against me in, apparently.
Yeah.
So
Was that on air or off air that she
I
said
think that was on air because she was like, man, you got to find something that he doesn't know. But that's okay. Hurrdat Hot Seat. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll kick us off
All
here. And this question is funny because it's like 4 questions.
Love it.
And because we don't have any rules for this segment, I'm like,
No, it's a free for all.
Yeah. Okay.
Did we lose it? What
No,
happened?
I did lose it. I was on the wrong section of questions. I'm like, I asked that question on Tuesday. Here's the 4 questions.
All right, here we go.
All right, you can pick any one you'd like.
Okay.
If you were drawing up the final shot for your team,
Okay.
who's taking it?
Okay.
If you're needing 3 outs in baseball, who
Okay.
are you bringing in? If you needed a game-winning field goal, who's taking the kick?
Ooh, okay.
And you need a for-sure goal scorer in hockey, who's taking the penalty shot?
Okay. So let's start with basketball here. This can be anybody, historic, active, whatever.
Anyone you want. Who is taking your game-winning shot? You're the coach. You're drawing up the play.
Yeah, I mean, do I need a 2 or a 3?
You need a bucket. We'll say 2.
Okay, so if I need a 2, I'm going Michael Jordan.
Okay.
That's right in my wheelhouse. No brainer for me. If I need a 3, I am going Curry over Jordan because Jordan's just not that type of 3-point shooter for his career. But if I need a 2, I'm going MJ. That's an easy one for me. If I need 3 outs in baseball, as a Red Sox fan, this is going to surprise you probably, but I think I got to go Mariano Rivera.
It doesn't surprise me at all because
mean,
at some point you just have to acknowledge the best closer in the game.
Yeah, I mean, he's the best closer of all time, and it's not even close. So, yeah, I'm going to take that guy as long as he's not playing the Red Sox because they did have his number a little bit at the end there. But so I'm going with Rivera. Field goal, was that the next one?
Yep, field goal.
I think I got to go Vinatieri here. I know you're like a Justin Tucker guy, but for all the big kicks that I saw Adam Vinatieri make, I really can't get it out of my head. So I got to go Vinatieri. I still don't know how he made the snowy kick against Oakland. Like, I don't know how anybody
How the ball got up that high.
I don't even know how he didn't just fall on his butt, like, because they only scooped this very narrow path for
Shouldn't
the ball.
have even have ever happened.
Listen, the Tuck rule is a real thing. Don't worry about it, Shane. But
Especially when Adam Vinatieri's kicking game winners for Ravi's team.
I don't even know how it happened. So Adam Vinatieri is as easy of a one as Rivera is in my head. And what was the last one?
Penalty shot in hockey.
Ooh, I mean, this is probably a cop-out answer. I'm just going to go Gretzky. I mean,
One of the greatest scorers.
I
all time.
gotta go with the GOAT
I
there.
mean, in statistical categories, he is
Right,
the greatest
yeah,
scorer
yeah.
of all time.
What are yours?
But different age of hockey.
Different eras, yeah. You know, it's like, it's when people talk about like Wilt Chamberlain, right? And it's like, okay,
right.
he wouldn't score 100 points in the game today.
Mhm.
He was playing against a bunch of like 6'6" guys.
So for me, if I'm drawing up a play in basketball, I'm taking Kobe.
Okay, fair.
Kobe is the best scorer, like a shooter. Well, this is hard because you can say things and then like they can be argued because of the way that you say
Yeah.
them. Kobe as a shooter, both at a 2 and I mean, he can shoot threes, but mostly at a 2. Like the way he creates for himself, he doesn't have to get to the rim or anything. Like that's why he's the best scorer in history, in my opinion. He may not be the best player, but in terms of scoring, there was nobody better than Kobe. So that's why I'm drawing up my play for Kobe Bryant.
Okay.
But like, don't twist the words.
Yeah.
Because like Michael Jordan, like could be considered the best scorer in somebody else's head,
Yeah.
but it's not the way that I think about how I'm using Kobe to score this
Well,
point.
and part of it's probably era dependent too. Like you saw way more of Kobe live
Right.
than you did MJ. So like that
But
makes
even
that makes
like
sense.
I say he's the best shooter,
He's
but like Curry can be like the best shooter, but Curry's the best 3-point shooter. Kobe's just like the best overall shooter for me. That's why I'm drawing up my play for Kobe.
Kobe might be the best like bad shot maker. Like he doesn't have to get a particularly
And
good
maybe
look.
that's kind of where I'm like leaning with
Like,
this. Like,
I
hey,
think-
I need a contested bucket.
Right.
Give me Kobe.
Like he might be the best contested shooter in terms of that. So I think I kind of get where you're going there.
All right. Next on that list for a closer, I wanted to go with Mariano Rivera just because he's the best, but I'm going to avoid going with the best of the best here. Give me, man, we talked about Trevor Hoffman a little bit there in the break because we were talking about Padres.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one.
There was
Eric Gagne.
I was going to say
good.
There was a stretch where nobody was better than Eric Gagne.
Kenley Jansen was like more my time growing up. Nobody was better than him.
I'll be honest. The Red Sox closer I've ever trusted the most was that one year they had Craig Kimbrell.
Dude, beast.
Like that's how I.
Who else did they have for a long time?
They had Keith Folk for a long time.
Not him.
Before. They had Kimbrell. They had.
Oh my gosh, Papelbon. They had Papelbon.
Oh, Jonathan Papelbon.
He was a beast for a while.
He was really good. Yeah, when it's about closers, for me, it's entirely about like, how do I feel when this person comes into a game?
Yeah.
Like,
and I'm with you.
Aroldis Chapman's a really good example of this.
Great one. No one could touch him for a while.
For a while, but like there was a stretch after that where I was like, I don't trust when this person's in the game.
Mm-mm. Especially when he came in for the Cubs in that World Series game.
Yeah, you lose it pretty fast, and it's kind of funny just how it's a gut feeling thing with closers so much.
Yeah, and I think about the Cardinals a little bit, and the guys that I would go with.
Did you have like Isringhausen?
Well, they're before my time.
Okay.
Like Izzy was like in my window, but like Izzy was inconsistent. I always had to hold my breath whenever he came in. But when he was with the A's, he was awesome.
really good. Yeah.
And then after that, it's just kind of gone all over the place. They haven't found a consistent closer, and even when they had Jason Mott in the World Series, it was like, he was good for like a hot sec. Give me Eric Gagne.
Okay. Prime Gagne. Yeah.
Just a little off beaten path there because Mariano Rivera is, I think, the easy option.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
If I'm taking somebody to kick a game-winning field goal, you know who I'm going with. It's Justin Tucker.
Yeah, that's your guy.
Justin Tucker is my guy, and I just haven't seen anyone more accurate in their career than him. And I've seen a lot of great kickers over the years. Vinatieri I watched for a long time too because he's played football
forever.
Yeah, and until his right leg fell off. I thought he was going to start kicking with his left at one point.
He probably could.
So I'm going with Justin Tucker. As for a goal scorer in hockey, give me TJ Oshie.
Okay.
So off the radar choice here.
Yeah, a little bit.
For a penalty shot. But remember what happened in Sochi when the U.S. went into 8 or 9 rounds with Team Russia and Oshie took like 6 or 7 of those penalty shots. And watching him dangle Sergei Bobrovsky and end up winning that game in Russia against Team Russia in front of all of their fans. That was the best hockey ending, I should say, I've ever watched. And I saw the Blues win a Stanley Cup.
Fair enough. I can respect that. That's a good list there. We're going to do another little section of Hurrat Hot Seat here to end
Jordan
the show
all day with the game-winning shot.
At 9:45. Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on what type of shot you need.
Yeah, but he put game-winning shots on the map. I mean, what did you have before that? What's highlighted before that people go back to?
Well, Jerry West.
You don't have
film. But on the map,
you don't really have film of those things.
That's what I'm saying. He put it on he put it on the map.
He put it on the map. Maybe he's just born in the at the right time.
But he was the guy,
and
though.
Look, Jordan's the GOAT. I'm with you. Yeah. But I'm just saying
he put it on the map.
Became king. Like that was prime Jordan.
Shane. Game winners existed before Michael Jordan.
Maybe.
And the highlight films that he's talking about are because that's what started around Jordan's time.
Coming up next, we're going to talk
so I'm right then.
Ooh, Larry Bird's a good one. Lance chimes in.
Larry Bird would be great.
Bird.
Robert Harry is what Amazing Daniel.
Robert Horry.
Sorry. I saw an A there. I'm looking from a long ways away.
We've got Brian Edwards coming up next year on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We will be joined by Brian Edwards, our Vegas insider, in just a little bit here. Before that, though, if you want to maybe play some of these picks that our guy Brian Edwards is going to lay out for us here, you can go to our friends over at the War Horse Sportsbook, either the casino in Lincoln or at Horseman's Park in Omaha. If you want to get qualified, though, for their Festival of Games, which you definitely want to get qualified because there's a $100,000 prop card challenge on the line and a $20,000 grand prize drawing, you want to go to the casino in Lincoln to get set up for that. You got to be a rewards member to get your entries. but every $50 sports ticket gets you an entry into both the prop card challenge for the big game in February and for the $20,000 grand prize drawing. You've got until February 1st to get entries for that. And then make sure you go to the casino and validate them with your rewards card. Get all the details at warhorsecasino.com. Now for the details that we're looking for from our guy, we've got Brian Edwards here laying out all the picks for us. B, how are you this morning?
Good morning, fellas. How we doing? How cold is it out there?
It's still too cold.
Listen, we're up to a balmy 19 this morning, which is it's like a 40-degree improvement from a few days ago. So I'm actually,
and it feels like 40 degrees.
It actually is like a lot warmer, even though it's currently still 12
below
degrees
freezing
outside.
2 nights ago we were in the mid-20s, but wind chill in the teens, and then last night low 30s. So we don't do this in Florida very much.
Well, B, are you going to make your way out to Vegas this weekend? Because I know someone who is.
Scott Manziera or you?
This guy. And Scott. Scott's going to be there too. You have to come.
Oh, gosh, man. It's a little late. I mean, flight probably $1,500 here with 1 day in advance.
Yeah, you got to let our guy know a little bit before that.
I should have. But you know what? Your plays this weekend will be played in Vegas. Don't you worry.
All right. I hope they're going to be good.
Let's start off with some of the NFL slate. You've got Packers are 9.5-point dogs at San Francisco. How are you playing that one?
Yeah, so I like the Packers here, but now I want to be clear. I got it at 10 early in the week. I think you should buy the half point to the key number of 10. So, I mean, the Packers are playing outstanding. They've won 4 in a row. They've covered in the last 3. Obviously, that game wasn't nearly as close as the final score indicated last week. And then you look at the Packers, they're only 5-5 straight up in ATS on the road this year, but their 5 road losses have been by 13 combined points, none of them by more than 4. And then in the last 9 games, which the Packers are 7-2 straight up, 6-3 ATS. Jordan Love, last 9 games, 21 touchdown passes, only 1 interception. Now Aaron Jones is healthy. He had one little warm-up game where I think he had 53 yards, which was his first one back in a month he had missed. But the last 4, 127, 120, 111, and 118 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns last week. The Packers have won outright in their last 4 as underdogs. And San Fran, they are only 3-5 against the spread at home. When they've been favored by 6.5 points or more this year, they're only 5-6 ATS. I like the Packers, but plus 10. I like them.
Speaking of high numbers, B, there's another high number in that Ravens-Texans game. You're not on the play. You're sticking with the over in the game along with the Ravens team total over of 27.5. A couple of questions there. Why do you like those plays more? And does the high number scare you to where that's why you're avoiding that play?
Yeah, I'm scared to lay that many points on Stroud, but I also want to attack this game by supporting the Ravens. And so I think that in doing so if we take out the regular season finale, which we should, Lamar Jackson, Zay Flowers, etc., Odell Beckham did not play in that game. The 6 previous home games, obviously excluding that Pittsburgh game without the starters, Baltimore had the following scoring outputs: 56, 37, 34, 31, 37, and 38. So at least 31 in all 6, 34 or more in 5 of 6, 37 or more in 4 of 6. So that's why I like the team total over 27.5. And I like it over 43.5 as well. The last 10 games Lamar Jackson has played, the over is 7-3. In his last 6 starts, CJ Stroud, 9 touchdown passes without an interception. And the over 5-1 in Baltimore's last 6 home games, if we again exclude that regular season finale at home, which we should because their starters weren't playing. But the 6 previous home games, the over was 5-1. It's going to be cold. There's going to be 10 to 15 mile an hour winds, but that as long as it's not 20 to 25 mile an hour winds, that's not too bad in my mind. So let's go over 43.5 as well.
We're talking with Brian Edwards, our Vegas insider. Buffalo KC, maybe the most anticipated matchup this weekend as they face off in the playoffs for the third year in a row. How are you playing Buffalo and Kansas City?
So now both teams have been under teams this year, especially KC, and they played a 20-17 game for only 37 combined in the regular season. However, I just trust Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes are going to, produce in this game. Now, DraftKings just like 15 minutes ago was still at 45, but most books 45.5. Again, I'd like to recommend buying the a half point here. 45 is a key number with a total because it's 3 points more than 42, which is a multiple of 7. And again, 10 to 15 mile per hour winds and temperatures in the 20s, but there's not going to be any snow. I think the weather was a lot worse on Monday when they had 48 combined and it went over, and that was against the Pittsburgh's, pretty pedestrian offense. The over is 3-1 for Buffalo in its last 4. Those overs produced combined scores of 48, 48, and 46. And Buffalo's defense got banged up bad. I mean, they were already without 3 starters to season-ending injuries, and then starting DB Taron Johnson got a concussion, so I think it's pretty doubtful he's going to play. A couple of linebackers, Bernard and Spector, did not participate in practice yesterday. Neither did another corner, Christian Benford, and the over is hitting 3 straight road games for Kansas City. If we exclude the regular season finale at the Chargers, which we should, because no Mahomes, no Kelsey, etc. So I'm going to go over hopefully 45 on KC Buffalo.
The other game that we have yet to talk about is that Lions game in Detroit. Bucks moving up there. They are playing in a dome for those that are wondering.
Don't have to worry about the weather.
Don't have to worry about the weather up there. B, you're not much of a money line guy, but if you were to play a money line, it'd be on Detroit.
Yeah. So look, if you can get a teaser, so Baltimore's moved to 9.5. So, I don't know how everybody does some people can do a 6.5 point teaser. Some people can do a 7-point teaser. I mean, I think Detroit's going to win outright. I just don't trust them laying the points. But if you want to do a money line parlay or a teaser, I'm okay with a teaser if you can get Baltimore to 3 and verify that your book doesn't make a loss on a teaser, which is kind of archaic, but there are certain books that have those rules that a push on a teaser is a loss. So if it's not a loss on a push and you get Baltimore -3 and then Detroit -1 or pick them, then I would like that teaser. All I'm trying to do is give you an opinion on Detroit, but I don't really have one on the spread. You got to couple it up with another game is what I'm saying.
We're talking with Brian Edwards. Good stuff there on the NFL. There's also a UFC 297 main event this weekend. Who do you like there?
Yeah, I like Dricus du Plessis. Now, you could have had him like +130 several weeks back. I got him at like +120, I think like a week or so ago. Yesterday, I haven't even looked this morning, I'm sorry. But when I looked yesterday, it was like +105 to +110. I think he's going to, I love Strickland and all. A great performance against Izzy to end his middleweight reign, but du Plessis has just been running through guys, and I haven't seen any props for du Plessis to like win inside the distance, but or the win by the prop for KO, but it'll obviously be plus money because it's a little bit of plus money on the straight bet. But I think du Plessis gets the finish inside of 3 rounds, so that's what I like there.
B, if you're anything like me, I like to have these random plays throughout the week, whether it's an NHL game or an NBA game. If you were picking a game in the NBA tonight, what would it be?
It would be the Utah Jazz. I had them, last night in the tragic situation with the Golden State assistant got it canceled, but that just makes me now. We're dealing with a tougher opponent with OKC, but OKC's dropped back-to-back games, is playing his 3rd game in 4 days, whereas Utah's been out since Monday. Utah's won 6 in a row straight up in ATS, 5 of the wins by 11 or more. Going back further, the Jazz 12-2, both straight up and against the spread in their last 14, 15-3 both straight up and ATS in their last 18 at home this year. The Jazz 15-5 straight up, 16-14 ATS. OKC only 11-8 straight up, 10-9 ATS on the road. I'm just going to keep riding the Utah Jazz. They're on fire.
Hey, I'm cool with that.
Brian Edwards, our Vegas insider. Got about 20 seconds. Tell the people where they can find you.
At Vegas B Edwards on Twitter. I've got some fresh NFL content up at Major Wager, and my picks are always at Vegas Insider. Y'all have a great weekend. Good luck in Vegas,
thank
my
you.
man.
Thank you. Well, you said that you can find B. Edwards at Vegas, right? That's where my mind stopped. So my
There you
brain
go.
stopped there, so I'm going to find B in Vegas this weekend.
All right, gentlemen, y'all have a great weekend.
You
See you,
too.
man.
We'll talk to you later. That's Brian Edwards, our Vegas insider. Coming up next, our Husker insider, Michael Bruntz from Husker 24/7 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. And for this hour, number 3, we are also on KFOR in Lincoln. I want to tell you real quickly about our friends over at Pratt Dental. Pratt Dental was the first dentist in Nebraska to be certified in the BioClear method, located in North Platte, Nebraska. You can get the BioClear method and modern smile design to correct many aesthetic dilemmas in a permanent and less invasive manner than traditional treatments such as crowns. Because it's less invasive, it takes less time, less waiting. You can get fewer appointments because you can do multiple restorations in the same day. Dr. Pratt in North Platte, Nebraska, and Pratt Dental. You can find them at prattdental.com/bioclear-dental-treatment. That's prattdental.com. Click on their services tab. You'll find the BioClear treatment method there as well. Pratt Dental, creating healthy smiles. Joining us now on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline is our guy, Michael Bruntz from Husker 24/7. Bruntsy, what's going on, bud?
Hello, how's it going?
Hey, Brunsey, good morning.
What's up?
How are you feeling after that Nebraska ball game last night, where it seemed like they were the better team for about 90% of the game and were unable to shut the door on the road at Rutgers?
Not great. I think, you're kind of at the point now, or you were at the point with Nebraska, where you're just kind of looking to just run up wins. And, that last night, I mean, you guys brainstorm for a minute here with me.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything worse in basketball than just getting another team just absolutely like cleaning your clock on the offensive glass? Like, I don't know that there is.
It's one of the most frustrating things because you got the stop, right? You got the thing that
Right.
you needed, and then it's so deflating to then not secure possession. It is one of the most frustrating things that if it's happening continually throughout a game, it is one of the most frustrating things that can happen in a basketball game.
Well, because
Yeah.
it's a lack of effort thing. It seems like the effort just isn't there. And when you're not hustling and you're getting outplayed, it's one of the worst feelings as a sports fan, just kind of watching your team get deteriorated.
It also feels like
I mean,
it snowballs you on snowballs on you a little bit sometimes too, right? Where it's like, okay, we didn't have good effort for a couple in a row, and now they get a long rebound on a bad bounce, and then it gets tipped off of us and out about, and all of a sudden you're like, we just gave up 4 or 5 offensive rebounds, and we only didn't have good effort once. Like, what happened?
Yeah. It's basically like if you're, you in football, you essentially get a stop and the quarterback gets out and picks up, 8 on a 3rd and 6 or something like that. And it just keeps happening.
Mhm.
And it's, there were some plays last night. There was one I stopped and went back and watched it, and there was a rebound to the opposite side that Rutgers grabbed and put back for a layup. And, a couple of guys from Nebraska have their arms up like, you got to be kidding me. And it was just noteworthy to me that the 2 guys that were doing that with their arms up in the air, all disappointed about the way things were going, didn't have anybody nobody within like a arm's length of them to box out.
Funny how that works.
Yeah. And so it stinks. I mean, that was a missed opportunity, and you stack that with the way that the Minnesota game on the road played out. I mean, you led by double digits in 2 road games in the Big Ten, and you weren't able to close them out. I mean, that's great that you were able to get that lead, but I mean, you're going to get to the end of February, and you're going to be kicking yourself for both of those games, because those were 2 that Nebraska should have wrapped up, and they would have been, really nice wins on the road. I mean, I think Rutgers, despite what they've done to this point in the season, is going to continue to be a tough team. They always are under Steve Peichel. Minnesota, I think, is, better than what a lot of people expected. And so, I mean, it just kind of stinks. And, oh, by the way, you had Juwan Gary, who's, that one guy that can kind of do the things that we've talked about in terms of rebounding and just being an attitude type guy. Looks to be in not a very good place right now.
We're talking with Michael Bruntz, a Husker 24/7. You mentioned kind of the missed opportunities in the road games for Nebraska. The last 2 of the last 4 times out with Rutgers and Minnesota, but now they've lost 3 out of 4 overall. All 3 of those on the road. 2 of them didn't seem like they really came out ready to play. The last one last night, they obviously blew that lead. What is your level of concern as Nebraska kind of heads into this last, third of the season stretch here, where they're probably going to need to win some conference road games to get a spot in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, they're at an interesting spot. I mean, I think it was, you guys correct me on this, but with that Iowa game, they basically had not had a full prep in 4 games leading up to that. And I think the back end of the schedule for Nebraska is a little bit more manageable than what they've actually seen in conference so far. So, I mean, I guess there's a positive there. What we still don't know, what the long-term situation is with Juwan Gary. That's extremely important, because you were already a little bit thin in your front court depth. He's kind of that junkyard dog that, in games like last night, I mean, he's always seems to kind of come up with that offensive rebound or that putback or that hustle play that kind of really gets guys going. And I don't know who kind of slides into that role if he's not there to do it. So that's a concern for me, big time. And if he's out for any stretch of time, you got to find a way to keep Josiah Allick in the game and out of foul trouble. I know that's been kind of a battle they've been fighting all year, but the margin of error gets a lot thinner without him. And, the one thing you can say, though, I think Nebraska has been able to weather these types of injuries before. I mean, they did it last year with Gary, and after he left the shoulder injury. So maybe you reinvent yourself a little bit. I think Fred has the ability to do that, but it's just kind of the double sucker punch last night of the way you lose. And, oh, by the way, you also, look like you might be without a key player for a little while too.
Well, okay, so you've been asking us to help you brainstorm a bit. Help us brainstorm a bit, because, we're talking about potentially a huge piece of this team missing significant time. If there was one player to step up, who would that be for you? Would it be somebody that is already a fringe starter in CJ Wilcher? Would it be somebody like Eli Rice potentially? Who's kind of been the one that you're going to throw that need upon?
Yeah, is it a money ball thing? I mean, are you trying to recreate Gary in the with multiple guys
aggregate?
I mean, yeah. Are you gonna go that route? Thank you. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's got to be a combination of Wilcher, who I think has played pretty well for the most part this season and kind of gone to a new level than what he had been before. And you're probably going to need Eli Rice to grow up really fast. I mean, I think at times he's looked, pretty advanced for a freshman, and I think at times he's looked like a freshman kind of making his way through the Big Ten for the first time. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's an obvious fill in there, but you're going to need somebody to pick up that slack, on the glass and also play a little bit more physically on defense than maybe what they're comfortable doing. So it's not a one-to-one thing in my mind. I mean, I just think you're going to need, guys to step up here and there.
Bruntz, as you're looking at the rest of the schedule, if I said you had to place $100 either on Nebraska to make the NCAA tournament or not make the NCAA tournament, where is your money going?
I'm keeping my money and I'm going to invest it somewhere else. I think I want no part of betting on Nebraska basketball, predicting Nebraska basketball. I don't know. I mean, I think they've set the table though for where they are now, where they can get it over the finish line. I think. I mean, you basically have to defend your home court. You might have to steal a game or two on the road. And this is a team that, when they're shooting ball from the outside, I mean, they're a real tough matchup for teams. So I would still lean tournament, but not as confidently as I would have done, maybe even coming out of that Iowa loss. I still felt like that was a little bit more of an outlier for this group than any kind of big trend. So we'll see what happens. But I would still very, very slightly lean tournament with my $100, but I would probably just hang on to it if I had my option.
Well, Bruntz, I got the option for you, because this weekend when Trey Palmer wakes up peed off, the degenerate bet of the weekend is Trey Palmer first touchdown. Plus 2,800.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. This is like first inning unders all over again.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good investment. That's a better use of that $100. And then you could take all that sweet Trey Palmer cash and roll that into a really stupid Nebraska basketball bet. I like the way you're thinking.
Yeah, you know what? That's where my brain goes. And you know what, man? My my bachelor party is in Vegas this weekend, so you know what I'm doing.
You're not just going to go see like a Cirque du Soleil show?
No, I have a better chance of ending up on the hotel roof than going to that show.
He told me he was going to go see the Britney Spears residency there in Vegas.
Yeah,
you're going to be trying to find the most obscure, like, Scottish professional football league match that you can bet on
at 4 a.m.
You're going to get Aberdeen over Hibs at plus 1.5. That's what you're looking for.
I'll send you my plays all weekend long. Your Twitter DMs are about to blow up.
Yeah. I didn't even know they played professional soccer in Azerbaijan. I can put some money down on it.
It's that Australian rules football that gets you every time. Bruntz, let's switch gears here over to football for a minute. Obviously, Dylan Raiola out at the Polynesian Bowl this week. Do we learn anything from these things, or is it just cool to see Nebraska recruits at a big stage?
I don't know. It's kind of like, I don't know, you watch him throw a football. It's kind of like when you used to watch Mark McGuire take BP. That's kind of what it is. I mean, it's tough too now, because in those games you got guys opting out. Raiola's been in Lincoln, essentially enrolled, and is doing this. I mean, it's more of almost like a Pro Bowl type thing now than anything. But it's going to be the first time that a lot of people are going to see an extended look at Carter Nelson. He's playing in that game as well.
Mm-hmm.
Preston Tauma, same way, the guard from Hawaii. So there's value in that. It's kind of like it's like anything. If your guy for your program that's committed plays well in an event like that, it really matters, right? Like, you really care about it. And if maybe not so much, guy doesn't play much, it doesn't really matter. It's just a showcase kind of thing. But no, I think, when you look at the talent that's in Hawaii this week, I mean, I think Raiola is really towards the top of that list. He's been the best quarterback there all week, which should not be a surprise. And, it'll be good for Nebraska fans to see him throw it around a little bit. It definitely comes out of his hand a little bit different than it does most quarterbacks. So I guess watch it and dream a little bit of what the future can be.
Bruntz, another thing that popped off the page yesterday was seeing that Glenn Thomas carries the co-offensive coordinator tag.
Yeah.
What sort of responsibilities do you think come with that title for him?
I don't know. I mean, that's the thing we need to hear from Matt Rule on. You know, a lot of focus is going to be on who's got their finger on the button with the play calling. That's going to be, you know, some intrigue there. I kind of went back and forth on it this week too. I mean, when you have just do you need your quarterback's coach to have a role in game planning, a significant role in game planning and coordinating? I don't think so, but I think it helps. And, you know, I think the one thing that will be a benefit to Nebraska with, you know, the reunion of Thomas with the staff and guys he's really familiar with, you kind of know how everybody works. You know what everybody's looking for. You're probably speaking close to the same language in terms of verbiage and how you want to do things. And that's good. I mean, it's not, you know, a continuity situation, but it's pretty much as close as you can get to one. And I think that that's really important when you're going into the second year of an offense and kind of what they're going to do. So I don't know. I mean, I'm eager to kind of see and hear what the breakdown is there and how things kind of go. But I mean, I think, you know, getting somebody in place a little bit different than Marcus Satterfield, the quarterbacks, is a good thing. And, you know, to have that guy in place on campus as you're starting winter conditioning, I think that's really important too when you're bringing in two really talented freshman quarterbacks and you're trying to develop Heinrich Haarberg, you know, based beyond what he did last year too.
We're talking with Michael Bruntz, Husker 24/7. Bruntz, do you think that we will get an answer from Rule about who is specifically calling the plays? Or I don't know. I just keep thinking about somebody asking him that question, and I keep getting this answer in my head of maybe he's going to dance around it a little bit. I mean, do you think we're going to get that answer at some point?
Well, you got to at some point. You know, maybe they haven't figured that out. I mean, maybe Satterfield will keep doing that with input from Thomas. I don't know. I mean, I think that's a question that you kind of have to answer. And, you know, I think if Matt Rule is prepared to give an answer, he will. I mean, I think he's very aware of what the conversation is, you know, among the fan base and out there with Nebraska fans. So it would not shock me at all to get an answer on that. I mean, maybe that still needs to be determined, but I don't think that, you know, that they went into this, you know, kind of not knowing what the plan would be and kind of laying out pretty clear directions on who would be doing what. Because I think in order to even have that conversation with Glenn Thomas, I mean, you need to know that. And I mean, I don't get the sense that there's too many things that to this point Matt Rule has refused to answer that, you know, don't eventually come out. I mean, he declined to answer the coaching thing at the signing day press conference, but I mean, there was a plan in motion there already. So you got your answer, I guess.
Bruntzy, what about this? Do you have a sense on Dana Holgorsen and what an update looks like regarding his status with Nebraska?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still, I don't think there's an update. I mean, I think, you know, the involvement there, what we had been told was always that it was going to be more of a potential off the field role, not a quarterback's OC type role. And, you know, I think that, you know, there was at least from Nebraska's perspective, there's interest from Dana's perspective, there was interest. And it was just that there wasn't like an accelerated timeline on making that decision. I mean, I think that the idea of burnout from what happened at Houston, I think, is a real thing. And kind of taking a little bit of time to catch your breath a little bit and kind of see what the next move is going to be. So, I mean, that just because, you know, that nothing's happened yet, I don't think that necessarily means that it won't. I mean, maybe decide that, you know, not a good fit now. You're going to go sit on your buyout money and, you know, watch football this season. But, I mean, I don't think that there's a, you know, rush timeline on any of this, especially because, you know, it looks like it's probably going to be an off the field thing anyways, where you don't necessarily need to be there right away in January and plugging away.
Bruntz, we've got about 4 minutes left with you here. I want to change gears because we are less than a month away from the start of the Nebraska baseball season. I know that's always a very special time of year for you. What are you looking forward to here as we're now, 29 days away from that opener against Baylor at Globe Life Field?
Yeah, they get started with practice, let's see, a week from Friday. And, with this team that you just start with the lineup. I mean, you're trying to replace Max Anderson and Bryce Matthews. That's no easy feat. I mean, those guys were damn good college baseball players. The lineup wise, I think there's probably going to be a little bit more balance in what they have. I think a guy to watch as a potential breakout from last year's team is Dylan Carey. He played third base last year. As a freshman, did pretty well. He's going to probably be moving over to shortstop this year. Was just an absolute terror during fall ball for Nebraska pitching. Hit almost 400. Had really kind of made some changes that added a little bit more pop to his bat as well. So I think he's a guy that fans need to kind of have on their radar really early as a potential breakout guy there. And then pitching wise, I mean, you're replacing your top two starters on the weekend from last year. You got to find somebody that can kind of be that Shea Shanneman role. And I think when you look at the way Nebraska's roster is constructed right now, they have a ton of pitching. And a lot of what they did in fall was just trying to figure out who fit where, what roles guys could handle, and just watching them compete. I mean, I think that's the big thing for Rob Childress is seeing who could kind of handle the lights, who was willing to, get in there and pitch with just a fastball and a changeup. That was one thing they did for a couple of weeks during fall ball was really challenge those guys to get in there and be competitive. I think Drew Christo is coming off a great summer. He had a great fall. I know they're really high on what his potential can be. He's a potential weekend guy for Nebraska right out of the gates. They've got like 6 or 7 guys that they see as potential starting pitchers on the weekend. So they've got to figure that stuff out too. But I would definitely kind of keep the roster close that first weekend because there's a lot of new names and faces. But I think they've got the potential to be a strong team this year. I think they really like the group they've got. It's super competitive, and we'll kind of see how all the pieces fall together once they get going on next Friday.
Bruntz, I don't need a long explanation for this, but I asked Ravi this question about a half hour ago. Got about 1 minute. I'm looking for your person. If you were drawing up the game-winning shot for somebody who's taking it, anybody all time, same question for you need 3 outs in baseball, you need someone to score a penalty shot in hockey, and you need a game-winning field goal. Who are you taking in those categories?
Oh, man. Okay, so I need a game-winning shot.
Yep.
The obvious answer is Michael Jordan. I need what do I need? A penalty shot?
You need a penalty shot in hockey.
All time? Give me Jaromir Jagr. I want that bullet flowing as he's going towards the goalie. I'll go Jagr for the penalty shot.
You need a field goal.
What were my other game-winning field goal?
Yep.
Give me Rich Karlis, the former Denver Broncos kicker.
We are going way off the beaten path.
Because everybody knows that barefoot kickers are significantly better than shoed kickers. So I will go Rich Karlis.
And you need a closer.
Closer, 3 outs.
Mariano Rivera, what the heck?
He couldn't think of somebody super crazy.
I'm surprised we didn't get Jason Elam for you on the kicker, your old Broncos guy.
Yeah, I thought about Eckersley because you gotta like that, and you gotta like that facial hair. So
there you go. That's our guy, Michael Bruntz, Husker 24/7. Bruntz, we'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, see you, man.
Coming up next, we've got Sydney Hilley from your Omaha Supernovas here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln. We are live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, and live from the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. I'm Ravi Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me.
Hey, man.
We are efforting Sydney Hilley from the Omaha Supernovas right now to talk with her, as the Supernovas are less than a week away from their home opener.
Gave away 4 tickets yesterday.
We did give away 4 tickets.
We'll give away 4 more on the night of the game.
Wednesday itself.
But it's in the morning. So
Yes.
you'll get the tickets in the morning so you can go to the match.
We'll do another trivia contest on Wednesday. I unfortunately won't be here on Wednesday next week, so someone else will actually have an opportunity to win trivia for once.
Oh my goodness. Who am I? Maybe I have to have Anna come up with the questions.
Oh, so
Anna's slotting in.
Yeah.
And then I'll face off against Shane. I think that's a good matchup.
That would go.
I'm not great at trivia. I love trivia, but I'm not great at it.
You're more like host. You're a very good game show host.
Yeah, I am very Drew Carey. I am not much James, whatever his name was from Jeopardy that won all that money. James.
Oh, what was his name?
It starts with an H. He's a professional sports bettor.
Yeah. Well, I remember Ken Jennings, and then James.
Oh, I should have just went with Ken Jennings because that's the easy one.
Yeah,
but James Holtzhauer. That's
Holtzhauer.
what it was.
That's what it is. Shano, do we have Sydney? Yeah. Okay. So we've got Sydney Hilley here from the Omaha Supernovas on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline. Sydney, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having me.
Good morning, Sydney.
It's great to
Good
have
morning.
you. We're super excited here at Hurrdat Sports, just a little less than a week away from the debut, not only of the Omaha Supernovas, but also of the Pro Volleyball Federation. What are kind of the feelings going through your mind right now as we get closer and closer to first serve?
Yeah, I'm just super excited. I mean, I feel like we've been waiting for this a long time, and now it feels like it's real. And I'm just so excited to play the first match and see all the fans show up to the CHI Center. So that's something we've all been looking forward to for a really long time.
Maybe a way to branch off of that question, a quick follow-up, but something that's more, individualized to you. What is something you just can't wait for as you think about the lead up to the inaugural match?
I think something that I chose Omaha for is the amazing fans around. How the Husker volleyball fans, they're super loyal to the team. They show up for every match. They're really passionate. And I'm just really excited to have them on my side instead of when I played against the Huskers in college cheering against me. So now I can have those awesome fans on my side. So that's something I'm looking forward to.
Well, Sydney, you mentioned you are very familiar with Nebraska volleyball fans from your time being on what we call the wrong side of the rivalry, but you obviously played for Wisconsin in college, got yourself a national championship. So that's obviously a great accomplishment. But what did you kind of learn about the way the state of Nebraska, kind of what they think about volleyball, how they feel about volleyball, and how much did that draw you to the Omaha Supernovas?
Yeah, well, number one, I think they're super knowledgeable about the game. They're really educated and know their stuff. I just love how they sold out every single game that the Huskers had. And then if you're traveling to an arena, they come to every away game. It's super awesome. And I was lucky at Wisconsin to also have really good fans, but I knew that Omaha would get a huge draw from those Husker volleyball fans. So we're hoping to have the greatest fan base in PVF, and I think that we could definitely do that.
Sydney, you've played professionally in Turkey and Puerto Rico. I know you haven't had your first match here as part of the Pro Volleyball Federation yet, but what so far has been some of the differences between playing in other countries or in Puerto Rico and playing here in the U.S.?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of differences. I mean, number one, everyone speaks English, which
helpful,
makes life
super
a lot
helpful.
Easier. But also, I guess, just the time difference and being able to still talk to friends and family and still have those connections with everybody. I mean, in Turkey, it was like a 9-hour time difference, which made it very difficult. Third, I also have a job on the side. I'm also a scientist, so being in the U.S., I'm still able to keep that job, which is really awesome. Best of both worlds for me. But just I think being close to friends and family is the number one thing that I'm really appreciative of.
So we're talking to Sydney Hilley of the Omaha Supernovas. Okay, you mentioned that you're a scientist as well. I'm reading the notes here on you, and I'm looking. Okay, degrees in genetics and genomics, and a graduate student in applied biotechnologies. And I'm sitting here going like, okay, when you went into college, like what made you want to go into those fields? Because that is not an easy field to go into and be a student athlete. Like what made you want to do that, and how did you balance that being a high level athlete?
Yeah, so when I first went into college, I thought I was going to be a pharmacist, and with volleyball, being a pharmacist is really difficult because there's certain classes you have to take at certain times, and it just doesn't really work with volleyball. So it was recommended to me to get an undergrad in some science. And in high school, I really liked studying genetics, so I kind of went down that path. And then when I was actually getting that degree, I realized that it's actually super cool and it can help a lot of people in the healthcare field. It's kind of an up and coming field, so I was super excited about that. And then with COVID, I was able to get an extra year of school. So my 5th year, I got my master's in biotechnology. But I think one thing that really helped me manage volleyball and a harder degree is just, well, number one, time management, but also just like being where your feet are. And so like when you're at volleyball, you're not thinking about the homework assignment you have or the test you have the next day. You're thinking about volleyball. But when you're at home and you're doing your homework, you're only focused on that. All the other distractions are put away. And I think that's something that really helped me, is just stay where I was.
You know, Sydney, you're someone that's been on the big stage your whole life. Ravi listed off some of your achievements in your volleyball career and where you've played, and you've played just on the biggest stages. If you think back to when you were just 10 years old, could you ever imagine you'd have the career you have today?
No, I don't think so at all. But I think one of the greatest things about having a professional volleyball league in the U.S. is now young girls like me at 10, I would have someone to look up to and be like, hey, I want to be a professional volleyball player. Whereas before, that really didn't exist. I mean, I looked up to college volleyball players and maybe some like Olympians. But now it's like so much more visible, and I think that's something that's super exciting. And I know that when I was 10, I would have loved that.
Yeah, Sydney, I mean, you kind of mentioned that there, but it is a big deal to be able to look at something and say, okay, my career doesn't have to end in college, but I can have a professional career in this. Is that maybe part of the motivation between maybe not just you, but also maybe some of the other players in this league of wanting to be committed to this because of what it might do for younger generations?
Oh, 100%. And, you know, we've talked to some other women who have played volleyball, and they say, oh, I wish this would have been around when it was my time. And so it's just kind of cool to be a part of history and hopefully be a part of something that's going to give a lot of opportunities to other girls who want to play professional volleyball and stay in their home country. So I think that's definitely a huge part of it. Is we're building something that's hopefully going to be around for a long time and give girls an opportunity to live out their dreams.
Sydney, last question here, and then we'll let you go. Do you have family coming down for the first match?
Yeah, I do. Mom, Dad, and my grandpa and one of my aunts are coming down. So I'm excited for that.
And you mentioned Mom and Dad, both high-level athletes at North Dakota State in their day as well. They must be proud of all that you've achieved as not only a collegiate athlete, but now a professional one as well.
Yeah, and they've just been a huge support, and I wouldn't be here without them. So I'm so appreciative of everything they've done for me.
That's Sydney Hilley of your Omaha Supernovas. Sydney, we appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us, and best of luck in just a handful of days as you kick off the Pro Volleyball Federation.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
That's Sydney Hilley of your Omaha Supernovas. Remember, you can go to supernovas.com to get tickets, both season and single match tickets available at supernovas.com. You can also win some tickets here from Hurrdat Sports Radio on Wednesday. Match day.
Yeah, and the good news is the trivia god it won't be here.
So you have a chance to win. You actually have a chance to win. That was Sydney Hilley. We really appreciate her time here on a Thursday. Coming up next, we will do part 2 of Hurrat Hot Seat here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln. Wrapping up the show here on a Thursday on Hurrdat Sports Radio on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube on the video stream as well. I'm Ravi Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me. It's your Friday.
It is.
You're heading off to Vegas for the bachelor party this weekend.
Man, it's gonna be fun. I have a great group of guys, and really, really excited to just kind of see all of them because these are people that I don't see every day.
Yeah, right.
Everybody in my wedding party is somebody that isn't in Omaha.
Oh, that's fun though for you. So you get to see everybody.
So I get to see everybody, and it's kind of a mini vacation at the same time.
Yeah.
And for me, like people are probably like, "Oh, Vegas, like he's gonna get completely obliterated," and like your thought would have been true 4 years ago, but today. And dealing with some internal injuries that I've given myself, cough, gastritis, that won't be happening. Like it's going to be a stick to beer thing, and it won't be a lot of beers either because the body can't handle it anymore.
Yeah, it's going to be mostly, I feel like you're just going to be sports betting most of the weekend.
Yeah. You know what? The damage is going to be done in other areas of my life.
It's going to be done to your bank account, not to your liver necessarily. So that's okay. Your bank account can recover a little easier than your organs can. So he'll have fun there. I'll be here with Avery Howard tomorrow. Super excited to have Avery back hosting with me again. We'll have a good time with that. So that's what you can look forward to tomorrow. But before we get there, we got a little more Hurrdat Hot Seat we need to get to because you had a great question in the last session of this, and we only got to one because it took the whole time.
That's what happens.
As we often do. So I've got one.
Yeah, kick us off.
That I'll be honest, I didn't come up with this one. This was one that I saw on a TikTok clip of the Kelsey Brothers podcast.
Oh, New Heights.
I don't know if this is a new episode or not because those TikTok clips come from all over the place. So this might have happened months ago, but I thought it was a good question, and we haven't talked about it. We both have iPhones, right? Team Blue Text,
yeah,
like
Team Blue.
We both have iPhones here. If you could only keep 5 apps on your iPhone, not included the ones that like come preloaded. So like
sure. Okay.
Your messages,
well,
your calendar, the weather, like all of those are like your photos, you're fine. Anything that comes preloaded on your iPhone, you get to keep, right? But 5 apps.
Yep.
I've got 3 right off the bat that are non-negotiable for me. Okay. One of them's not like fun. I keep track of my blood sugar on my phone. I've got a Dexcom app, so that's a non-negotiable.
I mean, you can get rid of that.
Yeah, okay. We won't count that one.
No, I'm saying like you don't. Need that app.
I do need that. I mean, technically, it also goes to my pump, so technically, I could get rid of it.
Yeah, your pump's like your pager.
Maybe I will get rid of it. I forgot that I do get it on my pump too, so I actually won't keep that. Amazon's number one for me because I order so much crap off of Amazon to the point where, like, I would. If I don't need something right away, I will order it off of Amazon to avoid going to a store. Like that is the level. I blame COVID for this because it went from like, got to go to Target once a week or every other week or whatever to it's like, nope, this is getting delivered to my house. I'm not leaving. So that is Amazon is a non-negotiable for me. Another one that for me is an absolute must is, I think because of what we do for a living, Twitter X is a non-negotiable. I can deal with some of the other, like I could get rid of Facebook tomorrow and it wouldn't be a problem.
That's what's hard for me because
part
of my job is
TikTok
having TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
So that's 4 of your 5.
So I'm like, can I like remove the job from this?
So here's what I'll do. For you. I will let Facebook and Instagram be one because Meta owns both of them.
Okay, huge.
But I think that's the best I can do.
Well, that helps a little bit. Okay, here's what I'll do.
Because
Twitter X has to be one
so
for me.
Technically, because correct me if I'm wrong here, technically with your job, you could film the videos and make somebody else post them.
That is true. That is true.
So you
and
wouldn't-
sometimes I do that,
so you
and our team is great about posting my
You
content
wouldn't
because I
have to have
balance
like
the time.
TikTok.
Yeah,
necessarily.
okay, that's a good call. So I'm going to keep X.
Mhm.
That's
a total non-negotiable.
The fantasy
Yeah.
football app I have to keep.
Okay.
Because as much as I can go on the laptop and do it,
Mhm.
it is I check it so often.
Yeah.
I check it almost like Twitter. And why should I? Because it's not like there's nothing changes in my lineup unless I get an update of, hey, this person's questionable. And even when they're questionable, they tend to be like, oh yeah, they're still on track to play.
It's almost
on
like a
Friday.
nervous twitch, though, almost.
But I play fantasy football, I play fantasy baseball, I play all this, and it's all on Yahoo. So
Yeah.
I need that
you
app.
need the app. Okay.
The ESPN app is huge for me too.
Yeah.
And the reason it's huge because you have ESPN Plus on there.
Yep.
And you can hit watch and you can get a lot of the games while also checking the scores. So those are top 3 for me right now. What's your third?
Okay, so what did I have so far? I've got Amazon, and I think I kicked out Dexcom because I can
you
check
did
it on my
X.
phone.
X
But I
was
did
2.
X, so that's my 2. ESPN is a third for me. Like that's a non-negotiable. I have to have that one. My 4th one is my banking app. I do a ton of my banking on my
Good
phone,
call.
and
Really good
I
call.
could technically do it on my computer, but I like having it where I can change it, whatever, and I don't have to be at a laptop or I don't have to go to a bank branch or whatever. So the banking one, I think I have to keep. That's 4 for me.
Yeah, DraftKings has to be on there for me.
Okay.
The sports betting app.
Sports betting.
But the problem with that is, like, because I pay my credit card bill on my phone too.
Mhm.
You mentioned banking. It's
Yeah.
not like it's a different app for my credit
I'll
card
give
bill.
you 1 for financial. Just call it one.
Oh,
one
okay.
app
Well, then I need a
financial.
financial app.
Okay, yeah.
Because I need Venmo, I need my bank,
Yeah.
I need to pay my bills. Financial is 1, and then DraftKings, that would be 5.
My 5th one, I think this one's tough.
But I don't actually need DraftKings. Like, I could give up sports betting.
Well, or you can just go to our friends at Warhorse, go over to Horse.
That's a good one too. Yeah. You know what? Living in a sports betting state, I'm not used to living in a state
until like recently.
until Iowa.
Yeah.
Because when I lived in Missouri, obviously it's not there. And here, even when I first moved, it wasn't free. So that's a good one. Warhorse. Can't forget about my friends. I can remove DraftKings. So I'm back to 4. Okay. Number 5.
Mm-hmm. So this is tough. My 5th one is tough as well. What's up, Shane?
Do you guys entertain leaving an entertainment app up there, like a Vudu or a Netflix or like a music app or anything like that?
I don't watch stuff on my phone that much.
Spotify was a close one I was thinking about.
But mine comes with Apple Music, and I use Apple Music instead of Spotify. And it comes with the podcast app.
But I use the podcast app more than Spotify, which is why I didn't lean right away into Spotify.
I use my Apple loaded podcast and music app, so I don't have to worry about that one.
I'm debating between 2 right now.
Okay, what's the argument?
Email is 1.
Okay, so I think I could migrate to the preloaded email if I had to, because there is a preloaded.
I hate that.
I do too.
I hate it with
and
passion.
I don't use it, but if I had to, I think I could.
And the other one, weirdly, is my my car app, so I can turn it on, so that in cold weather like this, it'll be warm when I get in.
That's a good one.
Because I don't have the key fob thing.
Oh, see, I've got the key fob.
I only have it on my phone.
I've got
so
the
that's
key
why I'm
fob
between
button.
those 2 right now.
Honestly, I think you got to go car there. I think you do.
Dude.
Or you could just buy a new car that has the key fob.
But see, I don't even know if I guess some Ford vehicles do.
Oh, okay.
But they use an app called Ford Pass
right.
now,
But they don't. But they don't have the physical button on a lot of them.
No, I don't think. Ashley just got a new Escape.
Okay.
And she has the trunk button, which I don't.
Okay.
But she doesn't have the car starter on there.
Ooh, okay. That's tricky.
Guys, I think I'm gonna go with I gotta turn my car on.
You
got I gotta turn it on. I need it warm.
Oh man, my 5th one's difficult because I don't. Since we eliminated some of the ones that I thought I was gonna use, it becomes a little trickier here. I'm getting rid of Teams. I don't need that. You can get a hold of me on my computer or whatever,
Text me.
guys. You can text me, not a big deal. Man, there's a part of me. I know I'd be way more productive if I got rid of like TikTok. So I'm not just like scrolling endlessly and kind of doom scrolling. This is embarrassing here. a little bit. I have this fascination with looking at houses. I get it from my dad.
Zillow, huh?
I think I'd keep Zillow.
So that's funny because I, as well, have a fascination of just seeing what other people are doing and being like, oh, that's kind of a cool update. I wonder if I could do that in my house.
Yeah, so I do that. I do it to like get ideas. I also do it to like, okay, I kind of weirdly use it as like motivation in my life. So I'll look at like houses I can't currently afford and be like, okay, what would I need to do?
And like, oh, that's nice. If I could get there someday, like that's the house I want.
What do I need to do to get to the place where I can buy this house or I can have these features? And so I kind of weirdly use it as like a.
What about like your Ring doorbell?
See, I don't use a Ring doorbell. I use a different system that I've got like a hub at the house, so I don't have to. I don't have to have
that doorbell goes to my phone.
I've got it that goes to my phone, but I can run it from my house. Plus, my wife can have it on hers. She can figure it out.
See, you know what?
So you can kind of double it up.
The fiance point.
You can double up the apps here.
But I mean, my car's my car, so I'm going to need.
Yeah, you're going to need the car.
So all right, I'm going to stick with this. It is Twitter, X. It is a financial company of some sort. It is the Yahoo Fantasy app. It is the ESPN app, and it is my car.
Yep, and I'm going on Amazon, Twitter, ESPN, financial, and Zillow.
Can't believe I'm sacrificing the email app.
I can't believe
I'm sacrificing Gmail and Outlook.
I can't believe
for the mail app on the iPhone.
I can't believe I'm using Zillow as one of my 5.
That is wild.
That is Hurrdat Sports Radio. Andrew, have fun in Vegas, buddy. Have a good time. Don't blow through the wedding budget on sports betting, but double it. Maybe double the wedding budget.
Yeah, exactly. Put it all on black.
I will be back with Avery Howard tomorrow here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.